through on Friday as well as a series of fronts come in from the Atlantic. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Pressure on the police. The Prime Minister says a standing army of specialist officers are ready to deal with the violence.
Well, unrest is continuing as 3 police officers have been injured overnight as riots break out in Plymouth.
Decision time for Democrat nominee Kamala Harris as she's expected to announce her running mate today, we're told. We brought you into a state of excitement yesterday, but it's going to be today in Philadelphia.
Financial fears as markets crash around the world. So are we heading for a global recession?
The Sussexes speak out on suicide. Meghan says sharing her thoughts are worth it if it helps save others.
And as it is found, a third of working parents would fancy a job during school term time only. We're asking, should flexible working be allowed?
Is it time to put fun into funerals? We'll be joined by comedy legend Paul Chuckle as he wants to have a chuckle at a funeral.
To me, to you, to me, sorry, I couldn't help myself. And at the Olympics, double gold evening for Team GB as Keely Hodgkinson wins the 800 metres. In the cycling, the women's team sprint, breaking the world record 3 times in the process as well. Disaster for Molly Caudry in the pole vault. And tonight, Josh Kerr will try and emulate Sebastian Coe 40 years after the last British winner of the Olympic 1500-metre title.
A bit of rain across parts of eastern England today and plenty of showers across western Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in between, many of us will have a fine day. Join me later for a full forecast.
1 minute past 6. Good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and this is GB News Breakfast. I'd love to hear everybody's views about this at home, about having a chuckle at a funeral. I think we're both quite aligned in our views on funerals. I like, people dressed in black and to cry quite a lot, and certainly my husband has to, be miserable for about a decade after we die. So no laughter.
No laughter at your funeral whatsoever.
But I do think it should be celebration of life, but I also think it needs to be sombre and respectful. And I've been invited to funerals where they've said, please wear lots of colours and things, and I struggle with that.
I think what the English are particularly bad at, and maybe modern-day society, is actually going to a funeral. They don't see the reason to go.
Yeah.
A lot of people, well, I didn't know her.
Oh, I know, they don't want to encroach on other people's grief.
Oh, no. Oh, well,
I am English.
And the other awful thing is that it takes 4 weeks to be buried in England for whatever strange, stupid
I find it strange that
reason.
you guys in Northern Ireland...
We're done in 3 days.
Yeah, I can't cope with that. I haven't come to terms with the death after 3 days.
Yeah, well, that makes it very, very sad, but there it is, it's done and it's dusted. By the time you get round to it in England, people say, who was that? What was that about? I don't think I'll bother going. I do think the biggest tribute you can pay anybody is to attend their funeral.
And you learn so much about that person at a funeral. I do think there's a lot to be said for living funerals. I had a really good friend who was dying quite slowly, and I really wanted her to have a funeral that she could attend, because I knew that we were all going to get together once she passed away, and she would love to be there with everyone, but she was too ill in the end. But I totally understand the idea of a living funeral. I think they're lovely concepts. But could you laugh at a funeral? Is it the right place?
Oh, yeah, you can laugh,
afterwards,
you can cry.
At the wake, maybe, but...
I made joke when I lost my dad, and I think it was the funeral I was dreading even more than him passing away, because it was how it would be. And it ended up, it was jokes, and I was telling stories, and you know what? I actually walked away from the funeral. I know it sounds like a weird thing to say, and went, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
And that is a good thing, surely.
Well, it's a really interesting discussion. I'm probably going to change my mind by the end of the morning, but let us know at home what you think. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say.
The news on this Tuesday morning: police officers have been injured during sustained violence in Plymouth this time, as disorder continued for a 7th day after the Southport stabbings.
Well, in total, there have been nearly 400 arrests, and that's in the last week. Dozens of police officers also injured, as well as shops, cars and homes being damaged right across the UK.
Billionaire owner of X, Elon Musk, has started a row with the Prime Minister over these riots, saying civil war is inevitable.
Well, we're joined now by Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray. Good morning. Lovely to see you.
Good morning.
Freddie, just no end in sight, really. Every night I go to bed thinking, will this be the night that it stops, and wake up to see yet more carnage. How should we get a grip of this?
Well, it's bad. It's obviously bad. There's unrest breaking out all over Britain and in Belfast.
I think
Belfast is part of.
Sorry.
I
should have. Sorry, that was a slip.
First error.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew I was all over England, Wales, not
all over
in Scotland,
the UK.
not in Scotland, but in Belfast. I think that I'm hearing a lot of talk about civil war. Obviously, Elon Musk said that. We read articles about England's social collapse and so on. I do think it's worth stressing that there have been no fatalities that we know of yet. It's the police that are getting the worst of it, and I do think the public should be supporting the police as much as possible because they are facing an incredibly difficult job. They're dealing with highly kinetic riots. They're dealing with different groups. There are different groups in different cities causing trouble. And so far, they are doing a pretty impressive job of keeping a lid on some pretty appalling scenes. So I think that's the most important thing to stress. As well as stressing that, English society is not collapsing right now. It may be collapsing slowly over a long period of time.
But it's not anything like civil war. I mean, that's a very American thing. We're not a country that tends to...
It's a very American thing, but I think it's also slight revenge for Americans because we often talk about... I mean, I've written many articles about America being on the brink of civil war, and I think there is this tendency, particularly with the internet, to become apocalyptic about everything. Everything is always about to die and to be destroyed. That hasn't quite happened yet.
I did some polling yesterday, I think they published it yesterday afternoon, saying that see the situations taken very seriously and the full force of the law being used, and 50% of people wanted to have harsher than normal sentencing and punishments for these people.
Well, because people are they know social disorder, the way to deal with it, and we saw this in the riots 10 years, 2011, that the way to police them was to make big arrests.
Freddie, apparently we're going to have to change your microphone because it's not working. So if someone comes out on the floor and does this while Isabel and I will chat on.
I'm not sure what's wrong with that. But yeah, we can talk a bit more about it. Some of the comments that Elon Musk made, slightly more controversial, arguably, is he went on to question why Sir Keir Starmer had decided to send resources to protect the mosque. Well, obviously the mosques and the asylum hotels had become targets, so the government would say that's an obvious thing to do. And really, do we need foreign commentary on the way that we're policing and regulating?
Yeah, but also, the way we're policing is sadly predictable. They can't police down side streets. They police main high streets and that sort of thing. And in Middlesbrough, Freddie, we've got your mic back on again. In Middlesbrough, gangs broke off. They went down side streets. They smashed windows of ordinary suburban houses. They smashed cars because they thought this was a street that was occupied by non-ethnic Britons. Yeah. And they were very...
Well, in many areas, we simply will not have enough police to deal with it. You see it in a lot of the footage. When there's a huge group of people, it's very hard, across a large area of a city, it's very hard to police. So I do think they're facing an impossible job. It is police officers that are getting the worst injured at the moment. And I do think, they need public support, and the public are right to want far more in law and order. Because what we're dealing with, to a large extent now, is a sort of demented vigilantism. So the people who first started rioting based on fake news about the stabbings in Southport thought that they are trying to restore, in a crazy way, they think they're trying to restore justice because social order has collapsed. Ditto, the Asian gangs rioting in Bolton and Birmingham last night. They think that their community's under attack and they have to restore riots. Of course, within that, there's a large number of people just trying to cause trouble. But the way to deal with that is to establish law and order very firmly. And it's good that Keir Starmer's saying that. As a society, Britain needs to re-establish law and order very firmly, very quickly and very harshly.
But he's coming out talking about this standing, what was his phrase? A standing army of specialist public duty officers. But then we hear from Devon and Cornwall Police, totally overwhelmed by those riots in Plymouth last night, saying we don't have the staff and the resources to suddenly magic up an adequate response to this. And that's how things get out of control very quickly. And it does seem as though these protests are highly organised, moving around the country, getting the police almost the better of the police. Does there need to be better intelligence?
Well, it reminds me a little bit of what happened in 2020 in America with the Black Lives Matter riots, where Donald Trump was talking a lot about the National Guard, and various authority figures were talking about bringing in the National Guard all the time. But it took a very long time for that to happen. It did happen eventually, I think, in some places. But meanwhile, cities burned for weeks, actually, on end. And that was much worse than what we're seeing so far.
What also amazes me is that there seems to be no reservation in sending in water cannon, CS gas, riot police into other parts of the United Kingdom, namely Northern Ireland. No hesitation at all, yet they would never send them into Yorkshire or Plymouth.
Yeah, well, I think they just have those facilities on standby a bit better in Belfast than they do on...
Well, they can be deployed.
They could be redeployed.
I know how they're stored in Belfast and how they could easily be moved around.
Boris was said to be a fan of bringing water cannon in, wasn't he? Boris Johnson was keen to hose everybody down.
He was very keen on going to see them being displayed, which is perhaps an insight into his character.
What do you think the reticence is in actually deploying them on mainland Britain?
I don't know that there is one. I just imagine that they're not well stocked enough.
Just no one's using CS gas. No one's firing rubber bullets.
There's been quite a lot of macing in what I've seen. Yeah.
What about the comments that Nigel Farage made yesterday about two-tier policing? It seemed to irritate Sir Mark Rowley from the Met Police, who went on and knocked a microphone out of the hands of a Sky News reporter as he came out of that Cobra meeting.
The reporter be traumatised now for years. I never heard such blooming rubbish.
No, it wasn't a matter of being traumatised, but he showed a bit of a temper. I mean,
what was wrong with that?
Well, he's a police officer.
Was that listening to irritating reporters?
He said he was in a rush. Well, no, I mean... What did you think, Freddie?
I think I agree. While I didn't agree with Elon Musk talking about civil war, I agreed with Elon Musk last night when he replied to Keir, because Keir Starmer released a tweet saying, an ex-post, I should say, saying, we will not tolerate something, we will not tolerate attacks on our Muslim communities. And Elon Musk replied, shouldn't you be concerned about all communities? And I do think that message needs to be made very clearly, that the police don't just get involved when minority groups are attacked. The police should get involved when there's disturbances on the streets affecting any community or any group. And I think that widespread perception that there is a two-tier policing may be a little bit inflated or quite largely inflated.
To be clear, I mean, the current threat is directed towards immigrants predominantly. And
I think Freddie's absolutely right. There are riots being instigated by Muslims as well, not to forget that, and they're not being reported upon.
And there is certainly some media groups, not GBNews, I'd add, some media groups will call them disturbances if they're being perpetrated by non-whites. And we'll call them riots if they're being perpetrated by whites.
If churches were being targeted by Muslim communities, I don't doubt that they would send in protection for churches, but I haven't seen any of that happening.
Well, churches have been smashed up and burned in the last 10 years, quite a lot.
Right, but I'm talking about the current situation.
Well, yes, but churches are burnt down again in part of the United Kingdom in Northern Ireland, and no one sends anything in about them. So they're burnt to the ground. They're petrol bombed.
I do think there is an understandable sensitivity when Muslim groups are attacked or mosques are attacked, and that is disturbing to see, and it's awful. At the same time, I think we need to look at these protests and riots as outbreaks of disorder and things that happen in Hare Hills, for instance. That was a group of Roma. There's just a law and order breakdown that is more generalised than just an attack on Muslim communities. So I think this sort of sudden hypersensitivity about attacks on mosques should be done in proportion to what's going on elsewhere.
Freddie, what I don't understand is these grown men who are part of the English Defence League, the same England who
Which
fought
doesn't
against...
apparently exist.
Yes,
it doesn't exist.
Years ago, yeah.
Well, they're represented.
But they're the similar group.
And you had Hitler's Nazi Germany ready to invade England. And you have these Egypts running about, these grown men my age who've got swastikas tattooed onto their shoulders and their neck and the top of their head and whatever. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Are you English? Do you stand for what England stands for? Are you a Nazi German?
You think, I mean, as in they've embraced a kind of fascism.
Who do they support? Yeah, who do they support? How could you stand and idolise a swastika, bearing in mind all that went on in the Second World War?
Well, they seem to idolise Tommy Robinson at the moment. I think there's an element of... I mean, I think the word thuggery is quite a good... which Keir Starmer's been using, is quite a good description of it. They are thugs. They want to cause trouble. They're bored. A lot of them are quite poor. A lot of these areas where riots are breaking out are areas with very high levels of people on benefits. It's just a tendency to cause trouble, which is part of human nature, and that is why you need strong and effective law and order.
It's been interesting seeing the ages of some of those involved, children as young as 11 attending a number of these riots, and men up to your age, Eamonn. And it was interesting hearing the Director of Public Prosecutions yesterday saying this is going to ruin your life and you could be in jail for years, you may not be able to travel to foreign countries, you'll have a criminal record, do not get involved, you will live to regret this day. That message is trickling through. I mean, they made a really big public showing yesterday, didn't they, of all of those names and addresses and personal details of the people that were entering pleas in court yesterday.
Which is a lesson we learned in the 2011 riots, that you make very harsh punitive arrests and people learn the lesson, particularly kids who don't really know these lessons. They understand that their lives will be ruined if they do this.
Well, you can contribute to all that we're talking about by having your say. Please do get in touch with us as well. And Freddie will be back at the top of the hour and we'll be picking his brain again and getting his thoughts on what is going on. Let's go to the USA now. Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to announce her running mate later today. She has interviewed 3 candidates, a short list of all white men. I love it. Why is this an issue? Why is it an issue that they're all white men?
I don't know, especially as she's ticks the box for diversity.
Yeah, so she ticks the box, so that balances it out. That's okay. They have a record of winning over rural, white or independent voters.
Well, the decision will be pivotal, of course, as Harris prepares to challenge Donald Trump in the upcoming election following President Biden's exit from the race.
Let's speak to a member of the California Democratic Party, Bob Mulholland. Bob, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
How do you see this going?
Well, we've had a couple of good weeks with the news when Kamala got announced as she's going to be our nominee, and I'll be in Chicago the week of the 19th. And obviously today, I think we're going to hear who the VP is, because in my hometown of Philadelphia tonight, she and the VP that she chooses will kick off a 7-state campaign tour. So we're all quite excited about it.
Who's your favourite candidate and why?
I'll keep that to myself. I am from Pennsylvania. I do think, you showed some pictures there. A couple of them are governors, and most presidents, other than the ones who die in office or killed, where vice presidents become presidents, most of our candidates who become presidents usually have governor or governor, like Ronald Reagan or Bush, have had that on their resume. And in the case of John Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor, he was an attorney general, and Kamala Harris worked with him on a lot of national issues like mortgage out of the 2008, all that trouble. But she knows all of them, and I believe she has spent time with several of them this past weekend, and that'll give her a good feel. Bottom line for any president is, can this person help me? Can they be a Spiro Agnew, spend all their time attacking the other people? Or can they be somebody who spends all their time in their own home state, a swing state like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and that's where Senator Kelly's from, that'll do me good. And obviously, Harris has been around for like 20 years in politics, and she has a good feel, and obviously she's known some of these people. So we'll see very soon.
One of them, I was hearing on the radio this morning, will maybe not be so well regarded because he's Jewish, and that may bring a lot of complications, bearing in mind what's going on in Gaza.
Well, anytime there's a Jewish person, Al Gore picked Lieberman, senator from Connecticut in 2000, and people always raise the issue, anti-Muslim, anti-Jewish, some of the other issues are always around in the UK and in America. And clearly, if whoever these candidates, whoever she picks as VP, there's going to be some criticism by somebody on the far left, somebody that doesn't like their governor, and that's normal. You know, most of our presidents in the last 2 times have more unfavorables than favorables on the day they're elected as president, and that's just the name of the game. So I'm not worried about additional anti-Semitic. I think that'll work to our advantage. Sort of like Trump the other day in Georgia. saying to people, "Oh, I just learned a few years ago that Kamala Harris is black," and people are the National Black Journalists Association meeting, and people were just shaking their head. What is he talking about? And then Trump was in Georgia over the weekend, a Republican governor, and he starts attacking the Republican governor, Kemp. Oh, he's trying to make me lose. And I think you only have 30 seconds every day with the voters. Use that time to destroy your opponent or to push yourself. Don't use that time to destroy your ally on the same party. So it's an interesting thing.
He's been going for Kamala Harris over the economy in the last 24 hours because under Biden it was gangbusters in the United States, and since she's been announced as his replacement for November, we've obviously seen, not linked, but obviously Trump's making that link, global stock markets falling sharply. Is that going to be a big problem, do you think, for Kamala, if there is a US recession?
That's an issue in October. I mean, Kamala Harris being chosen her nominee had nothing to do with the slowdown or the collapse or the mini collapse of stocks in Japan. This is a worldwide issue, and clearly last Friday, even though we've had 15 million new jobs created during the Biden-Harris administration, last Friday, oh my God, only 114,000 jobs were created. Well, that's pretty good. Most of the time, the experts predict 150, and it's been over 200,000. So I wouldn't take that as the meaning or the next 2 months. I just think it's normal in the stock market where over a couple of weeks it goes up 1,000, a couple of weeks later, all of a sudden it goes down. But clearly, anybody who's a president or vice president, if you have a serious economic problem in October, you got a problem. As John McCain found out on September 15, 2008, when the Lehman Brothers collapsed, that was the end of his campaign. And he was just a senator, but he was part of the Bush administration from the Republican Party point of view.
Well, to use a well-worn phrase, it's the economy, stupid. Bob, good hearing from you. Thanks for your thoughts. Appreciate it. Bob Mulholland is a Californian Democrat. Thank you very much indeed. 22 minutes past 6.
I'm just looking at the front of the Telegraph this morning. Celia Walden, a columnist for them, writing, "Is it time Prince Harry put away that violin?" I'd suggest that was a little while ago, but we are, as you might guess, talking now about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. She's been opening up in a major interview with CBS over the weekend.
She's revealed she hopes talking about her suicidal thoughts and online bullying will help others as she and the Duke of Sussex launch a new project to help support parents who have lost a child to online harm.
Well, here's a quick preview of that interview.
There's a through line, I think, and when you've been through any level of pain or trauma, I believe part of our healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it. And I haven't really scraped the surface on my experience, but I do think that I would never want someone else to feel that way. And I would never want someone else to be making those sort of plans, and I would never want someone else to not be believed. So if me voicing what I have overcome will save someone, or asks or encourage someone in their life to really genuinely check in on them and not assume that the appearance is good so everything's okay, then that's worth it. I'll take a hit for that.
The words of the actress Meghan Markle. Let's go to the showbiz reporter, Kinsey Schofield in LA. Kinsey, you've seen the interview. What did you think?
Well, I mean, I do think that there's no doubt that the Parents Network program is, an important program, connecting people that have lost their children so they have a community that they can lean on and a community that helps them navigate such a traumatic and difficult time. What an important message. Are Harry and Meghan the right people to deliver it? I would argue that they're not. Where is their concern for their family's mental health? If you want to stomp about cyberbullying, you should probably remove Chrissy Teigen from your friend circle, who, you know, we recently were talking about her and Meghan because she received one of those infamous jars of jam. But Chrissy Teigen is famous in the States for telling a 16-year-old girl online to go kill herself. So if Meghan truly wants to be the internet police and manage online bullying, she should probably start closer to home and remove some of these people from her circle.
Interestingly, it was Meghan's birthday at the weekend, and a lot of people have been commenting that there wasn't any exchange from the royal family wishing her a happy birthday, and sort of commenting that there they are talking about the importance of family and promoting all of that, and yet neither of them really speak to half of their own family.
Yeah, and talking about scraping the surface when it comes to her mental health struggles, I imagine that she's smart enough to know that by making some of these comments, it's going to dredge up that Oprah Winfrey interview where she accuses the British royal family of not helping her through her own mental health struggles. Specifically, I don't know if you remember this, Eamonn and Isabel, but in March of 2019, the royal family created digital guidelines. They created social media guidelines to protect Meghan, not only Meghan, but Catherine, the Princess of Wales, because they wanted people to be more delicate, more respectful in the way that they engaged with the royal family's official social media channels. So Meghan, you know, hinting that she didn't have any support throughout the royal family, throughout her time within the royal family, but we know that the royal family did make some moves when it came to Meghan and engaging with cyberbullying online.
How old was she at the weekend?
Oh,
43.
43. There we go.
Yeah.
Spot on. 43. Yeah. 3 years older than Harry, I think. He's just turned 40, hasn't he? Is that right, Kinsey?
He has not turned 40 yet because I believe because he's expected to receive the payout from the Queen Mother.
Oh.
But yeah, I think
he comes into money when he's 40.
Yeah, yes, he's supposed to receive his share of the Queen. He receives a bigger chunk of the Queen Mother's estate because he is the spare.
Wouldn't that be nice as a thing? You turn 40 and get a big payout from Granny.
I can't wait till I turn 40. That would be good. That's amazing. That's amazing.
But I think it's a very serious topic. I think that I appreciate what they're doing, and I'm happy to communicate and to learn more about children navigating online. Isabel,
definitely.
I've watched you for years talk about this and talk about how you want to protect your babies on the internet.
100%.
But I just don't know if these two are necessarily the vehicle that should be
but the thing is, you cannot offer any criticism to them doing what they do. It's interesting they pick this sort of subject. You can criticise them, but what nobody can do is criticise them and this subject as one.
I mean, I agree. I feel like they do bring up some really extreme topics, you know, like racism, like mental health, and it puts you in a corner to where you are limited in questioning them about their sincerity or their authenticity.
Yeah. Okay. Kinsey, thanks very much indeed. Good seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, let's get a check on what the weather's up to. It turned out to be another beautiful day yesterday afternoon. It didn't look very promising, but it was gorgeous down in the south. Here's Alex Deakin with a much more comprehensive forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most of us will have a fine day today, but across the northwest there's going to be lots of showers around, and it's a pretty grey start over parts of eastern England. Some mostly light rain and drizzle here, which will continue to edge eastwards across East Anglia over the next few hours before kind of fizzling out. Sunny spells for much of Wales, northern England and southwest England and eastern Scotland. For western Scotland, Northern Ireland, there will be sunny spells, but expect showers to come and go as well, some pretty heavy ones. A few of them for northwest England, But in the sunny spells here, 20 degrees. Could get to 24, 25 across the southeast when the sun comes out later this afternoon. But a fresher feel in the northwest with fairly brisk winds. And look at this, lots of showers just streaming in as we go through the day. With the winds coming from the southwest, far northeast of Scotland, seeing some shelter. So here, not many showers and some good spells of sunshine, but plenty of showers throughout today across Northern Ireland. We'll see some getting into northwest England and at times into Wales, but a good part of England and Wales will be dry for most of the day, and that rain fizzling out certainly by this evening across East Anglia. So a fine end to the day here. For many, it'll be a dry and a fine night across central and eastern parts, but further west, always the likelihood of more showers. And look at this, more wet and windy weather coming into western Scotland as we go through the early hours. It's going to be a soggy start to proceedings here tomorrow. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens, certainly in towns and cities across England and Wales. A little cooler in rural spots, so close to average really for the time of year. Sunny start then for the Midlands and eastern England during Wednesday, and for much of the east it'll stay fine throughout the day, but it will be quite breezy, and certainly further west, gusty winds and plenty of showers. A mix of bright spells, and then the next minute you've got a downpour coming in. Temperatures again close to average, so high teens across the north, low 20s further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
With the time at 6:30, it's the Great British Giveaway, and here's how you could win.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
A look back at the Olympics, what went on yesterday. Paul Coit with all the action on this Tuesday morning.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should Prince Harry have accepted an award named after a US war hero at a glitzy ceremony last night? People begged him not to, but he did it anyway. It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, Prince Harry paid tribute to the eternal bond between mother and son as he appeared alongside his wife, Meghan Markle, at the glitzy ESPY Awards, dubbed the Sporting Oscars last night. The Duke accepted the Pat Tillman Award, named after a US war hero, for his Invictus Games work. But Harry's decision to accept the award was shrouded in controversy after more than 76,000 people signed a petition demanding he reverse his decision. Well, speaking last night, Harry paid tribute to Pat Tillman's mother, Mary. But that comes after Mary Tillman slammed his decision to give Prince Harry the gong, saying, "I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients that are far more fitting. These individuals do not have the money, resources, connections or privilege that Prince Harry has." So tonight I'm asking, should Harry have actually accepted the award? Let me know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/yoursay, tweet me at GBNews, and make sure you take part in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now, a former Royal Butler, Grant Harold, and the journalist and broadcaster, Laurie Turner. Thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Laurie, I will start with you. I mean, the mother didn't want Harry to have it, but he did it anyway. What do you think?
I just think it's incredibly tone deaf. He seems to have an amazing ability to not read the room. It wasn't like this was a surprise because the opposition to him getting this award had been growing. So he had the chance to say, actually, I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to accept the award, but he didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
So much to celebrate from the Olympics yesterday. Keely Hodgson.
She did it.
With the first gold on the track. Paul will tell you more.
800 metres. It was, I think she was hot favourite to win that.
But that doesn't always guarantee it.
Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Ashley Moo, who was the American 800 metres champion, she's the one who beat her in the Olympics 3 years ago. So Keely was only 19 when she was in the Olympics in Tokyo. Got a silver medal also at the World Championships, not won the gold before. Now, the other runner that I mentioned, she never actually qualified through the American trials because what had happened was they do it on a one-off basis. So if you don't deliver, you don't get through. And what I'm saying, I'm not actually taking anything away from Keely because Keely is by far the best 800-metre runner in the world. And I thought it was a stroll. I thought she was fantastic.
Yeah.
And
it's just amazing, to see her cross the line at the end and she's not collapsing in a heap and lying there for the next 10 minutes or so. Just incredible how relatively little it seems to have taken out of her.
It was a great celebration as well, wasn't it? You always think, well, how do you cross the line? Do you do the dip? Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you put your arms up in the air? And you could see as she was running down the last 100 metres, she was looking up, and she was looking up at the camera as she's coming. I mean, obviously, I've got exactly the same technique as her.
Like Steve
and then,
Austin.
as she... and then it was this, and then she was like, yes, yes, and it was just a perfect run. So she's 22 years old, so who knows how much further, I mean, and how many more Olympics she's got in her. So she's going to be the superstar, the Team GB superstar of the Games. I mean, we can say that already. But tonight, I mean, there's a lot more I want to talk about from yesterday, but tonight is the 1,500 metres. Now, 1,500 metres, if you go back to when I was a kid and you think of Coe and Ovitt, and it's 40 years since a Brit last won the 1,500-metre title, which was Sebastian Coe back in Los Angeles in 1984.
What an athlete he was.
I mean, what an athlete. And that's interesting because we talk about 800 metres. Seb Coe was probably a better 800-metre runner than he was a 1,500-metre runner, whereas when it came to 1980, do you remember that Steve Ovitt won it and Sebastian Coe was distraught because that was his event, and then came back and won the 1,500, then did it against the odds 1,500 in LA in 1984, and there was that celebration which was very anti the press because people were saying that you can't do this. But now it's Josh Kerr tonight. Now Josh Kerr will take on Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the Norwegian, who we've spoken a lot about over the past year, the problems he's had with his father, the whole family TV show. So there's no love lost between these two. Josh Kerr is very, very confident. He's probably one of the most confident sports people I've ever seen that said, I'm only here for one reason. I'm going to go out and win the gold. It's none of this, well, I'll try my best, I'll do what I can. He said, I'm going to win this gold. And Ingebrigtsen is just going to have to eat my dust. Where you've got Ingebrigtsen is saying he ran against him in the heat and was saying, well, I didn't see him. Was he there too? So there's no love lost between them, which is going to make for a great race tonight. It's 1,500 metres.
Very good.
Yeah.
And let's team sprint gold as well yesterday.
Yeah, that was great. That was really great. Now, team sprint, when it comes to cycling, track cycling, you know, we've had great success in 2012. You think of Jason Kenny, you think of Laura Kenny as well, and many others. And but the team sprint we've had no luck with whatsoever. Never won a gold medal, but it was Emma Finucane, who is also the world champion at the moment, Sophie Carwell and Katie Marchant, who started off as a heptathlete, they put her on an exercise bike and went, blimey, you're good at this. Maybe you should try cycling.
I love those stories.
It worked.
Yeah.
And so they were brilliant, and they've had 2 heats and then the final, and they broke the world record every race they did. Can you ask any more? And they were fantastic. So gold medal yesterday evening for them.
OK, well, how do you say bye-bye in French?
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. What do you mean? Can't say goodbye. Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I thought au revoir was one of the easy ones, isn't it?
It is one of these.
Bouffon et grand croissant. Tout le monde.
Can I have a croissant for breakfast?
Something like that, right? Involving a hairstyle and everyone as well.
OK.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
See you later.
I don't know what that means.
Still to come, Alex Armstrong and
Did she
Nicky
swear at me then?
No, I said till later.
Oh, OK.
Yeah. They're going to be here. They're going to be through the papers and the headlines, everything that's making the news in English, don't worry, right here on GB News Breakfast.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A65 is closed in both directions at Giggleswick after an accident. In Powys, the A470 is closed in both directions between Riots and Llangeurig after an accident. In Hertfordshire, the A120 is closed each way between Little Haddam and Bishop Stortford after an accident yesterday afternoon. There's a reduced rail service into and out of Paddington Station in London because of emergency engineering work. Also in London, the A308 is closed along Queen Elizabeth Road in Kingston upon Thames for emergency repairs, with a number of buses having to divert. On the M2 in Kent, the eastbound entry slip roads closed at Junction 2, the Strood and Rochester turn for emergency repairs, and in Hampshire the A36 remains closed northbound off the West Swallow Services roundabout for emergency repairs. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
So we are reviewing the papers this morning in the company of Nicky Hodgson and Alex Armstrong. You are very welcome. Thank you for joining us, both of you.
Morning.
Elon Musk. Let's talk about Elon Musk. The thing is about Elon Musk, is he a nutcase? Is he, is he a super brain? What is he? But he's sticking his nose into British politics now, Nicky. Front page of the Telegraph.
Oh, my goodness. Can he just move to Mars already? I know that's his ultimate plan, but I would rather him do it sooner rather than later. He is just such a contrarian, and he's just poking He's almost poking fun at the situation in Britain, you know. He's got, you know, this man has £200 billion. He's the richest man in the world. He owns multiple companies that have a hold over, you know, various nations. And this is what he thinks it's fit to do. It's pathetic. I really feel... I mean, I don't know if there's some hackers out there that can kind of go after him and do something to his Twitter/X account.
Incite anything like that. But what I would say is that he is obviously part of the problem, because not only is he a foreign actor in this, frankly, but he is spreading commentary like that, which is inflammatory.
It's
say things like
it's inflammatory. It's completely unhelpful. It's irresponsible. And it highlights the problems with the big tech companies. How on earth are we going to negotiate with them to, you know, properly stamp out disinformation?
Tax them.
I mean...
Keep taxing them. That's the way to do them. Hit them where it hurts.
That has to be that.
We have this debate about free speech all the time, and I think just because he's a billionaire doesn't take away his right to have an opinion on things. And
it's not about his money. It's the fact that he's an owner of this platform. I mean, you know, it wouldn't be responsible for the head of the BBC to be putting out their opinions on the airwaves.
Well, sometimes they do on Twitter, you know. We've got BBC stars putting out their opinions on Twitter online. I mean, you know, he might be the owner, but he's still entitled to have his say. And we see other bigger billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg perhaps having conversations behind closed doors. At least you know what he thinks. And I think
but you don't know what he thinks. He's just provoking.
We certainly don't know what other billionaires think.
Like, fine, I'm not taking away his right to say or think whatever he thinks. We have an incredibly inflammatory situation in this country, an actual crisis, and his comments are deeply unhelpful.
Well, I certainly agree on the Civil War statement. I think that was probably just, you know, I think that's unnecessary. His other comment, which was the bit that people seem to be getting upset about the most, was where he commented under Keir Starmer's piece, saying, why aren't you saying all communities should be protected rather than one community? And I think that's a fair comment to make. And what I'd really argue is that if we actually had an opposition party where are the Conservatives, by the way? They seem to be completely missing.
There's none of them left.
There's none of them left. But this is their job. They're the opposition party. They're the ones who should be doing this.
Well, we had Priti Patel, Robert Jenrick and James Cleverly all yesterday making comments about the two-tier comments on policing.
Priti Patel has written a column this morning, again.
For sure.
But the thing I would say, Alex, is actually Keir Starmer isn't not offering protection to all communities. Let's be clear about this. Who started this? It was right-wing thugs, right? It wasn't Muslims.
Sure.
It was right-wing thugs.
Sure. And look, I don't want to make the situation worse by giving more labels out, because I think this is part of the problem. There's nobody going up on TV going, look, let's have some calm. Let's stop labelling each other. Far right, far left, thugs, Muslim violence. All this stuff is making it worse. I haven't seen a single politician come out and say, let's just have a conversation. Let's sit down and say, what are your problems? What are you concerned about? What are you concerned about? This is the real issue. You have the Prime Minister getting up on TV every day, adding more fuel to the fire, in my opinion, by giving out more labels to people. And I think actually we need someone with some decency.
I think he's leading. I think he's leading. I'm extremely impressed with Keir Starmer because he hasn't shied away from, you know, bolstering the police, making arrests happen very quickly, giving...
Well, making arrests happen, where are they going to go? I'd love to see how they're going to be fined, how they're going to be punished, where they're going. I know 400 went into the courts yesterday, but I agree with you. I think this whole business of labelling, the one word he wants to get out is the word thug. And thuggery. So every sentence has the word thug in it. Every police officer uses the word thug.
You think about people with Nazi swastikas on their foreheads, on their arms. What word would you use to describe them?
Them Nazis.
But they're such a minority.
That's what it was.
But this is the reality, is that they are such a minority of people. They are such a minority. And we've seen this through protests over the last few years. The minority are the ones who are getting all the attention. And what we need to listen to is the vast majority of people who have gone out protesting are peaceful on both sides.
There's a very clear difference between protesting and rioting.
And rioting, absolutely. And what we're missing here is that the vast majority of the peaceful people who are protesting should have their voices listened to, and we're focusing on the violence.
We're seeing disorder, illegal disorder, 400 people going through the courts. We're seeing homes, libraries, asylum seeker hotels being burnt with people inside them. That is not a protest.
You're right, and my point is not about them. My
Where
point
are these
is
peaceful
about
protests?
Well, there's plenty of people who have gone out peacefully protesting.
There are anti-racist protests.
And there's people who are protesting to policing. 100%.
What both ladies are missing here, and I say this day after day, is that until you talk to both sides, until it becomes jaw, not war, you're going to get nowhere.
Yes.
There's no point calling them thugs. There's no point doing this. You have to sit down and say, right, I don't agree with what you're doing, but what is your problem and what can I do about it?
Rehabilitation is a big thing with criminals, and I'm a big fan of that. And you sit down with rapists and you get to the bottom of the issue of why they've done it. You sit down with murderers and you try to help them rebuild their lives. The same with people that go around doing civil disorder, setting fire to things, try and understand why they are doing these terrible crimes against minority groups.
But in the first instance, you have to keep people safe.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly don't disagree. What I'm saying is not about the rioters. They are criminals, and we should call them what they are. They are criminals. But what I'd like to see is politicians who... What's happening is it doesn't look like the politicians are listening again.
No.
So they're focusing on the violent people rather than saying... There's there's thousands of...
The violent people are not given a voice and they're not considered seriously. No one takes them seriously.
Exactly.
And they will do that. The government will do that to its cause.
And the government will say, violence does not get you a seat at the table. We're not going to listen to you because you've thrown things at us. That's not how things work.
It is how things work. It's totally how the Northern Irish situation resolved itself. They would say time after time, there will be no place for the provisional IRA at this table. Like hell, of course there was, all the time. And that's how it's settled.
The peaceful people who are out there at the moment deserve to have their voices listened to. They frankly have been ignored by the political elite class over the last 14 years. They voted for low immigration, they voted for Brexit, and they have been ignored, and they are getting frustrated. And Keir Starmer coming out saying, far right, thugs, thugs, thugs. Those people feel like they are part of that category, and you're radicalising more of them to be violent and protest. So what we need is a politician to come out and say, I'm going to sit down and listen to both sides, and we're going to come up with an agenda that addresses both of these things. And that is how we resolve this issue, not by getting on TV every day and adding more fuel to the fire and adding more labels. And we should address the rioters, we should address the violence, and those people are wrong, and I'll say that I condemn their acts, but we should listen to the people that do have something to say, because they have been ignored and they have been very peaceful and quiet for a very long time.
Now, when it comes to a subject like this, Nikki, if you are worried about this and if you're thinking too hard, this could actually hurt your brain.
Yeah, well, I think we've all had
and you're probably watching this morning and you're saying, this is doing my head in, I can't listen to this, and there's a scientific reason why this is true.
Well, this is fascinating. So apparently, a study of 4,670 volunteers over 29 countries discovered that in the West, North America and Europe, we are almost twice as likely to have a negative reaction to having to use our brains in a hard way. And meanwhile, people in Asian countries kind of just cruise on and don't worry about difficult thinking. And it's been...
But could I say that they're educated like machines?
Exactly.
And maybe that's why.
And that's what the study says. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? If you don't use your brain, you do lose it. We know that from just looking at how, dementia develops in people. And I certainly know when I'm not writing a book, my brain turns to absolute slush, actually. And I have to write again to remember that I can
I'm a very practical person. I don't sit... the word puzzles and things like that and all that bores the heck out of me. I couldn't be bothered with that.
There's so many other ways to use your brain.
Yes,
right?
I agree with you. I agree with you. And that wouldn't be it for me. It's a weakness with me, but it is just
I think reading is still the top thing. Reading something that challenges you, and people are so poor at reading.
Do you think it's just a symptom of the social media life that we have? And it's so much easier for people just to go, right, I'm just going to go watch some videos.
I just lose time.
Yeah,
I mean, I love reading, but I'll sit down, just check my social media, and then I've realised I've lost an hour.
And you could have been reading
videos about growing vegetables or something.
Do you know what I started reading yesterday?
Yeah.
I started reading a book on Greek gods and legends.
Oh, God, go in hard. You haven't read for 20 years and you go in with, that would make my brain hurt. I can't cope. It has to have a story.
Greek mythology.
You see, I have an O-level in Greek mythology, and then I saw this book and I thought, I need to revise all this again. I need to bring this to the forefront again. And I started reading it yesterday and I found myself curiously enthused by it.
Do you have a favourite Greek god? Do you have a favourite? Yeah, do you have a favourite Greek god?
Zeus was the man, wasn't he?
Of course.
Zeus, the thing about Zeus is, he reminded me of me in many ways. He had a lot of women who adored him. And then he decided to take a lot of wives on and things.
no,
well, I'm sort of doing this as well. That's the way it is. But anyway,
brilliant.
Right.
So thinking too hard can be painful for your brain if you are Western.
What about soothing Irish accents?
Yes.
Oh, stop it, not more.
More flattery. Come on, let's pile the flattery on. Right, this is
But
it.
it's Dubliners, not that harsh Northern Irish accent.
Yeah.
Well, Dubliners have been voted.
You've got 30 seconds.
Right, Dubliners have been voted the sexiest accent across the UK
I agree
and
with
Ireland.
that.
Right? I mean, this is a survey done for the new Love Is Blind show coming out shortly. That's followed up by Cockney being second and Welsh in third. But have a guess who's the lowest? The lowest. Brummies.
Yeah.
And Glaswegians.
Oh.
Really
No.
Yeah.
I think Glasgow accent's very
I
good.
think it's nice too.
Yeah, I like all accents. I think it's important to have an accent.
No, we've got to go. Here's Alex Deacon with the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most of us will have a fine day today, but across the northwest there's going to be lots of showers around, and it's a pretty grey start over parts of eastern England. Some mostly light rain and drizzle here, which will continue to edge eastwards across East Anglia over the next few hours before kind of fizzling out. Sunny spells for much of Wales, northern England and southwest England and eastern Scotland. For western Scotland, Northern Ireland, there will be sunny spells, but expect showers to come and go as well, so pretty heavy ones. A few of them for northwest England, but in the sunny spells here, 20 degrees, could get to 24, 25 across the southeast when the sun comes out later this afternoon. But a fresher feel in the northwest with fairly brisk winds, and look at this, lots of showers just streaming in as we go through the day, with the winds coming from the southwest, far northeast of Scotland, seeing some shelter. So here, not many showers and some good spells of sunshine, but plenty of showers throughout today across Northern Ireland. We'll see some getting into northwest England and at times into Wales, but a good part of England and Wales will be dry for most of the day, and that rain fizzling out certainly by this evening across East Anglia. So a fine end to the day here. For many, it'll be a dry and a fine night across central and eastern parts, but further west, always the likelihood of more showers. And look at this, more wet and windy weather coming into western Scotland as we go through the early hours. It's going to be a soggy start to proceedings here tomorrow. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens, certainly in towns and cities across England and Wales. A little cooler in rural spots, so close to average really for the time of year. Sunny start then for the Midlands and eastern England during Wednesday, and for much of the east it'll stay fine throughout the day, but it will be quite breezy, and certainly further west, gusty winds and plenty of showers. A mix of bright spells, and then the next minute you've got a downpour coming in. Temperatures again close to average, so high teens across the north, low 20s further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A65 is closed each way at Giggleswick after an accident. On Merseyside, the A41 is closed along Chester Street at Tranmere. Green Lane is also closed for an investigation. In Powys, the A470 is closed each way between Riots and Llangierig after an accident. There's a reduced rail service into and out of Paddington Station in London because of a track fault. Also in London, the A308 is closed along Queen Elizabeth Road in Kingston upon Thames for emergency repairs. A number of buses are having to divert. On the M2 in Kent, the eastbound entry slip roads closed for repairs at Junction 2, the Strood and Rochester turn. And in Hampshire, the A36 remains closed northbound along Crawley Hill off the West Wellow Services roundabout for emergency repairs. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway. An incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. David from Kent was our last big winner. Listen to what he had to say about getting that winning call.
Hi, I'm David from Kent and I won £15,000 and it couldn't have come at a better time. I was gobsmacked. What have you got to lose? For what it costs? In fact, I've done it again this week, so I'd recommend it to anybody.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there on this Tuesday, yeah.
Pressure on the police. The Prime Minister says a standing army of specialist officers are ready to deal with violent protests.
So the unrest is continuing. 3 police officers injured. Riots breaking out in Plymouth last night.
It's decision time for the Democrat nominee, Kamala Harris. She is finally expected to announce her running mate ahead of a rally in Philadelphia today.
Financial fears, markets crashing around the world. Are we heading for global recession, and why?
And the Sussexes have been speaking out on suicide. Meghan saying that her thoughts are worth it if they help save others.
It's found that a third of working parents would fancy a job during school term time only. We're asking if you should allow flexible working to be that flexible.
And is it time to put the fun into funerals? Well, we'll be joined by the comedy legend Paul Chuckle of the Chuckle Brothers. He wants to change attitudes towards them after losing his brother.
And in the sport and the Olympics, a double gold evening for Team GB as Keely Hodgkinson wins the 800 metres. In the cycling, the women's team sprint breaking the world record 3 times in the process. Disaster for Molly Caudry in the pole vault yesterday, and tonight Josh Kerr will try and emulate Sebastian Coe to become the first British Olympic 1500 metre champion in 40 years.
A bit of rain across parts of eastern England today and plenty of showers across western Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in between, many of us will have a fine day. Join me later for a full forecast.
Hello, good morning to you on this Tuesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. Eamonn just whispered to me then, you said that too cheerfully, talking about funerals. And I said, that's the whole point. It's talking about the fun into funerals. And that is the debate this morning. Should funerals be a very sombre, very serious, which we both agree, sad affair, or, as the Chuckle brother...
Well, we were talking about a man losing his brother,
yeah.
And I would have to say I would be absolutely devastated to have lost a brother of mine. But I know exactly what way the funeral would go. It would be sadness, there would be tears, and then there would be huge laughter, a lot of drink, and then there'd be more tears, and then huge laughter, a lot of swearing, and yeah, you know.
No, absolutely. But it's such a funny topic, isn't it? Because people are just terrified of talking about death in this country, and, you know, it's such a conversation stopper.
But could I say, in defence of the Irish, we have funerals after tea. We have no need to be lectured by anybody on funerals. We do them right. They're all done and dusted after 3 days. We cry a lot, we laugh a lot, and we drink a lot.
And you dress all in black.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what about the idea of everyone coming in bright colours, not a tear to be shed? It's just a happy occasion.
I've been at funerals where people wear short trousers and Hawaiian
Football
T-shirts and things, and what a lot of... I mean, I'm a you know, a huge Manchester United supporter, I don't want anybody there in a Man United top. No.
But it is difficult.
Would you
If
wear
someone's-
black?
I would wear black to a funeral, and actually I had this dilemma when I was invited to a funeral recently and asked to wear the Brentford Football Club colours, and I did wear a red jacket in tribute, but I took it off because when I was in the church, because I felt this was a funeral. But luckily, the vast majority of people were also in black, so I wasn't on my
I
own.
always think about Coity. And if I went to Coity's funeral...
Would you with the Spurs colours?
We see, that's the whole question,
Oof.
you know. And I think I like him and everything else.
Not that
but
much.
if he insisted, but I don't like you that much. I mean, in fairness, I'm just...
You know what? Even I thought I was dead for a minute the way you were talking about me. I was just sitting back there. It was all, but you know, I did get a moment of it. So yeah,
I'd be a bit sad if you went.
Oh well, thanks very much. I would be if you did too. Yeah.
Then I'd laugh at you and I'd say kind things about you, but I wouldn't wear a Spurs shirt. No.
But how long would it take you to get over my death?
You'd always be there in my memory.
Yeah.
I'd always recall you.
Yeah. What was his name?
You know what Coity would say about this? You know.
I think you would both cry if I died.
Well, I now know
be
how to behave at different funerals, and you're one. I will be banging on the floor.
There can be jokes at the wake, but in the church, I want everyone to be really.
Look, I'm
really
crying
sad.
now.
Good.
I'm crying now.
You can do a reading. I don't mind because you do such lovely reading. You can do the eulogy. Actually, no, that would be.
Don't have him do the reading at your funeral. Just don't do it, especially if it's a poem.
But
you know.
the eulogy, no, that needs to be family.
The boy stood on the burning deck. It's never going to work.
Never going to work. We're just trying to get your views, your thoughts, and you know, terribly sad, Dan, if you've lost someone last night or today. It's just awful. It's awful. Yeah. But you will smile. There's times you'll smile too, and that person deserves a smile. But what people deserve most of all is you turning up at their funeral. The best tribute you can pay anyone is to attend a funeral, and not enough people do it. Correct. That's my view.
Right,
let's get some news.
On to the news, and police officers have been injured during another night of sustained violence, this time in Plymouth. Disorder continuing for a 7th day after the Southport stabbings.
Violent riots have taken place in Belfast. Protesters there throwing petrol bombs at police cars, at barber shops, at fast food outlets. Second night of disorder there.
Well, nearly 400 arrests have been made in the last week, with dozens of police officers being injured, as well as shops, cars and homes being damaged right across the UK.
Birmingham, let's look at Birmingham. Birmingham last night, tensions very high there. Video from social media shows a crowd of Muslim men gathering to protect their mosque.
Well, let's get the thoughts now of the Deputy Editor at The Spectator, Freddie Gray. Good morning to you, Freddie. Gosh, you know, what's the way that we're going to resolve this problem? Because it feels as though we have a more divided country than ever. I don't think we're quite perhaps where Elon Musk says we are, at civil war levels. But there is a lot of... Well, there's no love lost between certain factions, is there?
Well, what's the way to fix law and order when it breaks down? Is to re-establish law and order, and to do that quite fiercely and harshly. And Keir Starmer's making the right noises about that. I do worry slightly about what Starmer and other Labour ministers are saying about online. They consider the problem as big online as it is on the streets. For most people, that's not the case. Most people don't care what's going on online. They care about the fact the streets are disrupted and there's carnage. I think that there is this tendency among Labour people to think that dealing with hate online will solve everything. I just don't agree with that.
I think it's the conspiracy theories that they are concerned about. Disinformation, fanning the flames.
But they're not just concerned about that. They talk about hate online. They don't talk just about disinformation, misinformation, which is, of course, a problem.
But you know what I would say, Freddie? I'm impressed is the wrong word. What is it? I am amazed at how well joined up the protest is. I mean, how do you get Northern Ireland in line with Plymouth? How do you get Plymouth in line with Birmingham? You know, they all know what they're about, what they're doing. I mean, if I said to you, let's go out and break a few windows tonight, how do we do that? Where do we go? They know where to go. They know who's going to join in on this.
Well, and that is down to social media in the sense that, you know, WhatsApp groups and so on, you can organise things very quickly. The extent to which this is coordinated is a matter of debate. It does seem as though a lot of the kind of anti-immigration protests were organised. The rest of it seems to be groups being very hastily assembled. This ridiculously called counter-protest in Birmingham last night, which was just another, you know, group of people acting in a thuggish way. It was obviously organised quickly by groups, internet groups, saying, let's go to this place because there's going to be trouble here. And that is a problem with the internet. But that's different from saying speech, because I think what Labour are going to do is they're going to accept this definition of Islamophobia that means that you effectively cannot criticise Islam, which is not a race, it's a religion. And if we get that definition, I think a lot of people are going to be very concerned. And we do have free speech issues around it. And we need to stand by free speech because our society is based on it.
I see. I'm not saying there isn't Muslim violence on this. I'm not saying that at all. But I think some people are trying to blow it up bigger than it is. A lot of people are very annoyed that Elon Musk is being attacked, not by what he's saying, but that we're attacking him as well. Elon is right. The truth hurts. Elon is 100% correct. The UK is constantly sticking its nose into US policy. Elon Musk is an important person, and it goes on and on and on. This man's quite worshipped, it seems.
He has a lot of fans. I quite admire him, I must say. I think that the Civil War comment was silly and I do think that is because we often talk about civil war in America. You know, everybody looks at another country and goes, oh, it's civil war over there. It's not civil war. It's not social collapse. I think it's silly to talk like that.
Well, it's not just silly. It's unhelpful and in a damaging way.
Yes, it is unhelpful. But I mean,
does he bear some responsibility given the platform that he owns and presides over and has a reach through because of who he is?
Well, I do think, Twitter X does try and deal with disinformation, and that is what social media companies are most responsible for, is when, something that is wrong spreads like wildfire on the internet and causes violence and aggravation.
But also, I'd say, when people aren't listened to, when they're ignored. Jill says, Eamonn, you've been absolutely right about this. You've been predicting this for weeks after the unrest in Ireland, and I did. And I saw this in Ireland being part of the European Union, and yet it's going on there. People are ignored, and then people begin to say, no one's listening to us, and they rebel. So this is Southern Ireland we're talking about, which is different than Northern Ireland. So you've had problems in Coolock and Dublin and whatever. Last night in Belfast, you have a different type of violence, and I'll tell you why it's different, because Northern Ireland, Belfast, doesn't need any encouragement. They know how to riot, right? They do it at this time of the year, particularly. They burn things and whatever. This is second nature to them. And this is the scary thing. Some people don't need much encouragement to do what they do.
Well, I mean, it happens all over Europe, too. One of the reasons Paris isn't rioting this summer, Paris riots most summers, one of the reasons is because of the Olympics. It's effectively a militarised city at the moment. It'd be difficult to have a riot in Paris at the moment. But one of the reasons, I had a lot of texts from Americans who, like Elon Musk, were, texting me going, oh, my God, is society collapsing? It looks like society. And I think it's because the English historically don't tend to riot and cause carnage as much as other countries. There's lots of reasons for that. But that's why it really shocks people in America when they see British cities, which they associate with sort of havens of sort of tranquility, being, torn up, smashed up. And it's very, very sad.
But I think that divided democracy has kind of been exported from the United States, and we're kind of turning a bit more into America in that way.
I think so. We're downstream from, Black Lives Matter. We're downstream from social behaviour, which is all about causing disorder, smashing things up. But the point is, it's very hard to police cities, and it always happens in the summer. Why? Because temperatures rise.
Well, also,
when
schools are out, kids are bored.
We're
seeing kids as young as 11 being in the hands of the police.
Olympics aren't quite interesting enough.
Stop it, wash your mouth out.
No, but it's true. If I was 11, I'd be watching the Olympics, But these people... I watched a guy last night on the news kicking down someone's front door, and he must have been 10 or 11, and you just want to go out and slap him across the head, throw the little brat in bed. Mark says, I don't even think these riots and protests are about immigration anymore. I think people are so angry about the state of the country, two-tier policing, the cost of living, working-class people being trodden on. I think it's got to boiling point.
I think it's the three I's, immigration, inflation, interest rates. All those things are really hurting society at the moment, and that's affecting everybody across the economic spectrum. There are, these riots are happening in areas that have high levels of people on benefits and disability benefits. They are don't have much to do. They're bored, they're poor, they're restless, they're angry. And that's a recipe for
Look,
life.
it looks as though it's going to get worse because the stock markets around the world are falling.
Yes, well, it's a very troubling time in the world. There was a correction yesterday. I mean, I think yesterday morning everybody thought this is the end. People like Warren Buffett were putting all their money into, putting their money into cash. But there was a slight improvement. There was some better jobs data from America that caused a little turnaround in the markets. Let's hope that continues today. But what's going on in Asia is extremely worrying. Japan's economy collapsing, having done much better recently.
They had their worst day in 37 years. Unbelievable. We're going to be talking a bit more about that in just a moment. Freddie Gray, for now, thanks very much.
Great pleasure. Thanks, Freddie. Thank you very much indeed. Your views continue to have your say, of course. Get in touch with us and leave your say, and we'll put that up on the screen throughout the programme this morning to let you get in touch. There you go.
Fears of a possible US recession have sent stock markets tumbling across the world, as we've just been discussing.
On Wall Street, America recorded its worst day in nearly 2 years. Japan, stocks suffered their worst drop since 1987.
So how could the global uncertainty affect us here in the UK? Let's discuss this more with the former advisor to the Bank of England, Roger Gewald, been regular on the programme. Good morning to you. Interesting, Freddie basically giving us a bit of hope there, saying that there was some more positive jobs data released yesterday, which caused a bit of a bounce back on the stock markets. But it's the old adage, isn't it? When America sneezes, the world catches a cold, and certainly we saw some serious, and I mean serious, jumpiness yesterday. You know, the worst we've seen in 37 years coming out of Japan and the stock market.
Yes, well, I mean, I've been predicting this for a very, very long time. I think that you're all quite correct in what you say. I think a large part of what has happened and is causing the rioting in the streets and the unrest is that after 14 years of not being listened to by the Tories, we've now had several weeks in which it looks like Labour is going to be no better or worse, and people have just had enough, and it's summertime, and they're out and they're saying we're not going to have this. As far as the stock markets go, that just causes more unease. There's a lot of technical explanations, Isabel, going around with a lot of sort of economic gobbledygook. I'm going to try to explain it, maybe, if I may, in somewhat simpler terms. I think there's several causes of this crash. The main cause is actually, as you say, in Japan, where what's called the Japanese yen carry trade has exploded. To put it simply, the Japanese currency has been very cheap to borrow for a long time. I mean, interest rates to borrow their money was nothing, really. And trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in yen were borrowed by investors of all kinds to buy assets all over the world denominated in other currencies. That's a very risky thing to do. And when the Japanese started to raise interest rates recently, all the banks and other lenders called for margin. In other words, they said, give us some cash, give us some more collateral to maintain our loan to value ratios and the loans we made you. And whenever that happens, whenever there are margin calls, many investors dump everything they have and repay the loans immediately. So that's the crisis that hit Japan, a massive sell-off of assets around the world, dumping, all kinds of things in Japan and outside, which caused, as you say, the worst crash in Japan in 37 years, the worst fall.
I try to always sort of make it relatable, I guess, to us here in the UK, but also people at home. And essentially, it's people with pensions that will have taken a hit yesterday. I think pension funds had a particularly bad day. And a few of us probably are investors in the stock market, but it was a bad day for them as well.
Well, yeah, I'm not so much talking about stock market investors. I'm talking about the things that have hit the world and hit all of us. The second thing that happened at the same time is that the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, failed to recognize essential weaknesses in the U.S. economy, and people panicked and started to sell there on top of the crisis in Japan. So there's been a massive dumping, selling of assets around the world. That's what's caused the markets to crash. And that's what hurts us here, as well as the political uncertainty and the rioting, which is causing pressure on the pound, as well as it is on the euro because of what's happening in France. Japan, as you say, recovered a large proportion of the fall the very next day. And so I think this crisis will probably pass, but there is a basic fear that the US is going to go into recession, and that will be fueled by the fact of the third factor, which is that the big technology companies, the Apples and the others that have invested huge amounts of money in artificial intelligence are seen to be overvalued, and those are expected to fall by further huge amounts. So all of that is making share prices fall, making pension funds shrink, and putting less pounds in investors' pockets. It's just unfortunate.
Roger. Okay. Thank you very much indeed for the analysis and putting that in perspective for us, Roger. We've got to leave it there. We'll get a final word from Freddie as to what he's hearing now and the possible doom that's coming our way.
Roger's absolutely right to talk about interest rates. I mean, this crisis may well pass. Let's hope it does. But we're in a problem in the globalised economy. We have a huge problem, which is that we've had very low interest rates for a long time. Those have gone up, and economies are cracking under the strain of high interest rates. I talked about jobs data yesterday being one of the reasons why there was a slight correction. We had some slightly better news from the US. But we also had a lot of talk, quite well-informed talk, that maybe now the Federal Reserve, would cut interest rates. And as soon as that talk came out, the market started to ease.
Yeah, there's a big boost for Rachel Reeves because that reduces government borrowing costs.
True. And I think what we're sort of dependent on the Federal Reserve to kind of reassure us that it will cut rates at some point, and then the markets calm down. Yeah. But that's not a very healthy situation in the long run.
Very febrile.
We're addicted to cheap debt.
Yeah.
Freddie, great. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Look, let's take a bit of a break, find out what the weather's doing. Hopefully.
To be honest, we just need to find if there's any rain on the way, because that's going to be the thing that dampens down all this discontent.
As a gardener now, aren't you?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, no.
I was thinking about
From
that.
a
But
riot.
actually, it would save me doing a lot of watering because I'm a keen gardener.
I had to do a lot of watering last night.
Are we going to water all over the rioters? Let's find out now with Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most of us will have a fine day today, but across the northwest there's going to be lots of showers around, and it's a pretty grey start over parts of eastern England. Some mostly light rain and drizzle here, which will continue to edge eastwards across East Anglia over the next few hours before kind of fizzling out. Sunny spells for much of Wales, northern England and southwest England and eastern Scotland. For western Scotland, Northern Ireland, there will be sunny spells, but expect showers to come and go as well, so pretty heavy ones. A few of them for northwest England, but in the sunny spells here, 20 degrees, could get to 24, 25 across the southeast when the sun comes out later this afternoon. But a fresher feel in the northwest with fairly brisk winds, and look at this, lots of showers just streaming in as we go through the day, with the winds coming from the southwest, far northeast of Scotland, seeing some shelter. So here, not many showers and some good spells of sunshine, but plenty of showers throughout today across Northern Ireland. We'll see some getting into northwest England and at times into Wales, but a good part of England and Wales will be dry for most of the day, and that rain fizzling out certainly by this evening across East Anglia. So a fine end to the day here. For many, it'll be a dry and a fine night across central and eastern parts, but further west, always the likelihood of more showers. And look at this, more wet and windy weather coming into western Scotland as we go through the early hours. It's going to be a soggy start to proceedings here tomorrow. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens, certainly in towns and cities across England and Wales. A little cooler in rural spots, so close to average really for the time of year. Sunny start then for the Midlands and eastern England during Wednesday, and for much of the east it'll stay fine throughout the day, but it will be quite breezy, and certainly further west, gusty winds and plenty of showers. A mix of bright spells, and then the next minute you've got a downpour coming in. Temperatures again close to average, so high teens across the north, low 20s further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now imagine having £30,000 of extra tax-free cash in your bank account this year. Well, it could all be yours. It is the latest Great British Giveaway, and here's how you can get involved.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
There's a dream job.
Yeah.
For getting cash. This doesn't really exist for a lot of people anymore. But David Jason.
Oh, he's lovely.
He is lovely. He is lovely.
We bumped into him on that night out we went on. Remember at the Cirque du Soleil? He was there with his kids. You don't remember any of our nights out. It was just a race.
I met him on the back stairs. That's right.
Yeah, we were all together.
That's right. Yeah. And basically, he's saying that no wonder he was smiling, because every time an episode of Fools and Horses is aired on Gold or anywhere else, he gets a nice little earner, he says, from the repeats. Now, that is a dream.
We should get paid every time we pop up on Have I Got News for You or something like that. I'm always hearing about popping up on there.
Yeah, how did you get pop-up pay? You're right.
We should get pop-up pay.
You should be able to go to bed at night and say, oh, I've earned a few quid tonight.
That'd be nice.
That's the way to do it. That's how you get truly rich. That's how you become a millionaire, a billionaire. So if it comes out of the ground like gold or oil or coal or anything like that, these are the richest people in the world.
Do you know what you should do, Eamonn, is record a Christmas #1, which is like an Elvis impression.
It'll be lonely this Christmas.
And then you can live off the royalties.
Without you to hold. But I wouldn't get the royalties, though, because I would have to...
Would that go to Elvis?
Yeah. Or
okay,
whoever
well, we'll
wrote
have
it.
to come up with something where you can do the Elvis.
It'll be cold, so cold, without you to hold.
Not like you can.
This Christmas. Anyway, what are we doing? What's up next?
We're going to talk about flexible working. We could do lots of that.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of nonsense.
That'll be good.
You'd be in favour of that, wouldn't you?
Well, flexible working is a thing already.
I know it
and
is.
lots of people like it. It helps people get back to work. We'll be debating it after this quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tuesday's a difficult day to come into work.
Yeah.
It's neither one thing or the other. Too far to the weekend,
Yeah.
too soon after the other weekend.
Yeah, it's not quite hump day.
And almost half of people working parents, want more flexibility in what they do. 1 in 3 of those surveyed would consider taking jobs that only require them to work during school term times.
Yes, this is to improve their work-life balance. So we're asking the question, should we allow for more flexible working? Well, we're joined this morning by the broadcaster Paula London, who thinks we shouldn't allow flexible working, and the founder of Real Mums Club, Chrissy Powell, who thinks that it is an absolutely brilliant idea. Let's start with you, Chrissy, because nobody is suggesting for a minute, are they, that being a parent isn't a job?
Parenting a job itself, but I think flexible working, where it really comes into play, is it provides a gateway for those parents that currently cannot work. It provides them a gateway into the working world. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think every single employer should look into that as an option.
It's a fantastic idea, Chrissy, unless you're an employer. I would have thought you can't get people through sickness, through holiday, through when they want to work and when they don't want to work. Why even bother thinking about working? Why not just get paid for sitting at home doing nothing?
Because flexibility isn't just about term time only contracts. I myself, as a working mum, having a flexible employer, it means that I can still continue my work duties when children are ill. Recently, my daughter had a huge allergic reaction. It resulted into an A&E trip. If that wasn't a flexible employee, it would mean I'd have to have time off. Whether that's paid or unpaid, it can be detrimental to the employer and the employee. So by allowing me to work from home and offering more flexibility, employers offer different time scales. So it doesn't always mean that you have to work a 9 to 5 anymore. It might mean that you're best suited to work later on in the evening and pick up your work that way. I just think it's fantastic, and I don't think...
What do you do, Chrissy? What's your job?
Like I said, it depends on what working world you're in, and I completely appreciate, Eamonn, if that was yourself, who would take over you in the summer holidays. But if you're looking at the financial burden that working parents are facing at the moment...
No, but I'm saying, what is your job? What do you do? Do you change jobs?
I work in finance.
Right. Okay. Right.
So that's a no-brainer, isn't it, Paula? If it means that instead of having to take a day off sick or of leave, which is a nightmare for employers, employees can still get the work done, but in a more flexible way. So if the child's sick, they can do it when they're asleep in bed. It doesn't have to be within the 9 to 5. Why do you have such a problem with flexible working?
It's very interesting you mentioned children, actually, because I actually miss our Conservative government, especially what's going on at the moment. And Keir said that the plan for 30 hours of free childcare was supposed to be implemented next year. That was for children from 9 months old to 5 years. Keir said numerous times that that plan is unworkable. So he wanted to help get people to work and they wouldn't have to worry about the childcare. So I'm not a mother, but I do understand when people have children. But I think the only reason Amazon did the surveys is because they wanted to come out as the market leader for term time working. They let people work just in term, so they're off work for children, but they also pay such bad money. £10, unbelievably, for delivery drivers and £11 for warehouse staff. If they didn't offer flexible working, they'd have no staff. And I just think since COVID, people have just got so entitled. They want to work from home. I have 2 friends that work from home, and it's very interesting because they used to work for the office. I never used to hear from them. Now they call me for 1-hour chats during the day. And I was like, are you working today? Oh, yeah, don't worry, no problems. And unbelievably, 35% of the 2,500 people Amazon surveyed said that they would like to pick their own hours when they work.
Yeah, but Paul,
I
would argue you will always have shirkers. You'll always have people, whether they're in the office or at home, who will be useless. We have at every workplace I've ever worked in. Everybody knows who they are. They're, you know, dead wood, frankly. But we have a problem in this country where we have economic inactivity, where people aren't going back to work. If this was a gateway where someone said, look, I've got small kids, I can't get back to work at the moment, I've got to look after them. And they said, oh, don't worry, look, you can do a job. It won't be as well paid as a full-time job, but it means that you can work when your kids are at school, gets them back into the jobs market, gives them an income. What's the problem with it? Why on earth do we have to live in such a draconian society where you say, no, I'm sorry, it has to be 9 to 5 because that's the way it always was? It's so old-fashioned.
Well, I'm a traditionalist, so I like being old-fashioned. That's a good thing, for me anyway. But, you know, a lot of those people voted Labour. Labour said so many times that they don't think Richard's plan for 30 hours free childcare for all children as long as you earn under £100,000 next year. They said it's not workable. So what do they want? They don't want a government that's going to give them free childcare. They don't want to work a lot, then they haven't got enough money. You can't have it always.
Yeah, we can't have it today either because we're out of time. We've got to work after the break. We've got to do the sport. But really appreciate it, Chrissy and Paula.
Yeah,
thank you very much indeed for airing the whole subject with us. Thank you. Back with Paul Coyte talking about the Olympics right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A65 is closed each way at Giggleswick after an accident. On Merseyside, the A41 is closed each way along Chester Street in Tranmere for an investigation. Green Lane is also closed. In Powys, the A470 is closed each way between Riots and Llangierig. After an accident, there's a reduced rail service into and out of Paddington Station in London because of a track fault. Also in London, the A308 is closed along Queen Elizabeth Road in Kingston upon Thames for emergency repairs. A number of buses are having to divert as a result. On the M2 in Kent, the eastbound entry slip roads closed at junction 2 near Strood and Rochester for emergency repairs. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25. And in Hampshire, the A36 remains closed northbound off the West Wallow Services roundabout for emergency repairs. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done. Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Quick look back at the Olympics and a preview of what's happening today. Paul Sherman.
Things are going very well, aren't they? I'm really enjoying the Olympics.
Yeah, I think, and you can't complain about the medal haul. And once you get to track and field, real excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking to Andrew Pearce just now, who said, "Oh, you know what? We're one goal behind France now."
Is that right?
And that's right. And I didn't realise how close it was. So that could change today. But yesterday, more golds than the women's team sprint. Now this is in cycling, so it's track cycling now, and that's Emma Finucane, she's unbelievable. She's 21 years old, and she's probably, well, I say probably,
she's
hopefully.
An Irish name. Is she from Northern Ireland?
No, well, she's actually from England, but I think there is Irish heritage there. I think you'll find she's going in the individual sprint and the Kieran. You know the Kieran? Have you ever seen that where they have the motorbike?
Yeah.
So she's going in that as well, and along with Sophie Capewell, very moving because she lost her father 3 years ago, who was also a cyclist. So she was thinking of him. She was talking about him yesterday. And Katie Marchant was there with her children, heptathlete originally, then turned to become a cyclist, and they were brilliant last night. Broke the world record 3 times. What more can you ask for? World record and a gold medal all happened last night, and there's more medals coming for cycling, I expect, as well.
And that young girl, Keely Hodgkinson, winning gold yesterday, 800 metres, a difficult distance as well, but she wasn't even out of breath at the end of it.
I know, it's like a sprint now, 2 laps. But again, we look back in history, so it's, you know, if you're one of these numerologists and you look at 2024, go back to 1964, the legendary Anne Packer running into Robbie Brightwell, who was her fiancé at the time, his arms as she crossed the line. So she won that in 64. Kelly Holmes, 2004. It's like the old Spurs song, when the year ends in 1, it's when the year ends in 4. When it comes to the... Maybe we should re-record a version of that instead of Lonely This Christmas.
Lonely This Christmas, maybe you're right.
But yeah, the 800 metres, so it was terrific there. And Keely Hodgkinson, 22 years old, and what a future she's got.
Yeah.
What a runner she is. What a talent.
The one that the event that I look at, and there seems to be tragedy associated with it all the time, is pole vault. Dangerous, difficult, heartbreak for Molly Caudry.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very strange one yesterday because for me, she was one of the nailed-on medalists in track and field. She's the best pole vaulter, as far as women are concerned, in the world this year. And the thing is, when you go in and you start, you choose the height that you want to begin at, and then you will go higher. So either will go in lower. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. So she went in at 4:55. Now, 4 metres, 55. She'd already done 4:80, 4:90 this year, very easy. It should be an easy start for her. But she could not get over it.
And
it's a very technical event, and it's also very mental as well, because if you think about it, you've got to go in, you've got to get it right. Now, this is the difference. If you saw that documentary about Daley Thompson, didn't you? Daley Thompson in 1984, in the LA Olympics, he was struggling with a discus. Do you remember that? And he'd thrown 2, and it had... I'm even doing it. You know, do you see that?
Yeah.
And he'd thrown 2, and it hadn't worked out. The third one, he had to throw a good discus for that third throw. And Jürgen Hinkson, the famous German, who is his rival, and he did it. And it was like, I knew what I had to do. And with Molly, it just didn't work out.
No.
She's got a great future ahead of her, but all the years you train to get to an Olympic Games, and then it fails like that.
But it's like being a golfer or a tennis player. You have to have a connection with your equipment, your racket, or your club, whatever, as well, and a lot can depend on that. So
and sometimes it just doesn't feel right, and I guess even at that level, and it's like, this is just not feeling like it normally would.
There was a new world record, though, in pole vaulting.
Oh, yeah, Mondo Duplantis. Do you remember Sergei Bubka? He was he was always untouchable when it came to pole vault. This guy is Swedish, and again, like our sprinters, 6:25, third attempt in the pole vault. He'd already won the gold medal, and all the other vaulters are just standing there applauding this guy. Because what can you do when you've got someone like that to compete against?
What have we got to look ahead to today, Paul?
We have the 1,500 metres, the great days of Cohen over it. We remember 80, we remember 84, and it's one man, Josh Kerr, who's going in the 1,500 metres. And there's nothing like a real great rivalry in sport, and it's him and Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the Norwegian. They hate each other. There's one saying one thing about this. Anyway, there's a real rivalry, and they go against each other. It's going to make good telly. Oh, it's going to make great telly. 200-metre women as well tonight. Dina Asher-Smith runs, Daryl Neita runs. Chance of a medal, we'll hope. We'll hope.
Okay, we'll hope. Paul, thanks very much indeed. See you again in an hour's time. We'll see our newspaper reviews right after this short break. Don't go away.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, time for the best part of the show, Our Greatest Britain, where we share amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, that is Dr. Leo Cheng and Reverend Hilary Cheng.
Well, Dr. Chen regularly serves as a volunteer surgeon aboard the Mercy ships in West Africa and has recently served his 17th mission aboard the ships. He volunteers with his wife, Reverend Hilary Cheng, a Methodist minister in the UK.
Thank you for joining us, and what a privilege. So just briefly explain, what are Mercy ships?
Well, Mercy ship provide world-class surgery on the ship, and the ship then sail to these poorest of the poor country because there's no infrastructure to get road or rail there. And we offer free surgery and also education, training of medical staff, and partner with the local or the host nation to build up their surgical and anaesthetic services.
So how long have you been travelling West Africa? You go on all these different ships, different ports, and you treat the needy and the vulnerable. How long have you both been doing this?
20 years.
20 years?
Just over 20 years.
And you take the time to do this out of your own holiday from work. Why do you do it?
Well, because I'm indebted to the education in this country with all the qualification I get. And NHS is great. I love the NHS because without NHS, we see cases that we see in the low-income country. And I want to make use of my hand to help those people who have no way of helping themselves. Because the tumours, the deformities, not just a physical ailment, but it's being ostracised and die early, commit suicide because they've been ostracised by their family.
When you're on the ship, you are seeing the very worst that the country can offer. I find it a great privilege to work alongside these people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true, that. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're going to just continue talking about the Olympics now because this boxer, what was he, Turkish or what was he? Who was he? All the right, but what? Algerian. Was he a man? Is he a woman? What way will he identify? What are the papers saying about this, Nikki?
OK, so it's the final today, which is why the story's in the press so much. And as it so happens, both of the boxers have XY chromosomes. Now, biological sex is determined by a number of factors. It's genitals, reproductive organs, hormones and chromosomes, right? So no one element of that makes you a man or a woman. It's everything combined. So the problem here is that the boxing committee has not properly defined who is allowed to compete in which category.
Yes.
And that's why we're having such a big argument about it.
I thought they looked pathetic, and their rulings looked pathetic.
They don't know what they're doing at all.
They did not look in control, and every time the guy would explain it, he just irritated me.
They don't understand it, though. That's the point. They haven't done any of the basic scientific
Well, it says on his passport,
fact-finding.
or it says on her passport, she's a woman.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean anything, does it?
I
know, no, it means
we
nothing.
talk about testosterone. We ban people with testosterone levels, certain levels of testosterone all the time. We need to really get to the science of this and then make a decision.
Well, the International Boxing Association, I think that's the name of the association, banned both these boxers in women's boxing for a reason.
But they won't reveal the criteria for which they ban them on.
Fair enough, but they've obviously done it for a reason, right? And
they might have been the right reason, Alex.
Well, I suspect it is because they're males, right? They are males. They have a genetic advantage.
It's more complicated than that.
I don't think it is. I think most people will see this and go, why are... This feels like a further attack on women, on biological women who are born women, who may have disadvantage hormonally as they're growing up compared to a man, who get more testosterone in their body, who are stronger. There's a reason why there are 2 men in the final rather than there being more women in the final.
This is very specific. It's about chromosomes. It's not about hormones, right? And the issue is people with this condition, DSTs, they make up 2% of the population. That's 1 million people in Britain. It's completely taboo and we don't talk about it. We probably know someone ourselves. There'll be people who don't know themselves that maybe they have different chromosomes. That's not the only factor.
So we now have to check everybody's chromosomes?
No, of course we don't. But what I'm trying to say is sex is not defined by your genitals.
Yes.
The scientific community tells us that.
I appreciate that.
So what is your view on this then?
I think we need to think about the perimeters. I think we need to have a really nuanced discussion about where we set the perimeters. I haven't made up my mind about what the outcome should be yet. But we have to, as a society, understand that what you get taught in biology, XY, XX, is the most simplified way of understanding biological sex.
But it does have some grounding in it, Nikki. This is the thing. It has some grounding because it just so happens, out of all the women, all these amazing Olympic women, that the ones that do have XY chromosomes are in the final. There's something to be said about that.
The ones that we know about, Alex. There'll be loads of others that we don't know about.
But these are the ones we do. And to the fact that the International Boxing Association have banned them from women's sport says something to me, and I think we should take that more seriously.
Well, could I talk about a Paraguayan swimmer called Luana Alonso?
Yes,
I think there is no doubt, Alex, she is a woman.
Yes, I believe she absolutely is a woman.
Have you checked her chromosomes? Because
well,
it's not that simple.
Well, apparently our chromosomes were on show.
No, in which case I better check my own chromosomes. I haven't ever checked my own, so maybe I've got to check my chromosomes as well. But yeah, so one of the most glamorous, I think, to say the least, competitors in the Olympics has been kicked out of the athletic village for supposedly distracting competitors with her I'm saying this in air quotes, skimpy dress sense and creating an inappropriate atmosphere.
What a load
of
rubbish.
If
you're lucky enough to be born so beautiful, then be that beautiful. I'm sorry, but this is just such a load of tosh.
I also go, it's absolute rubbish.
She's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like,
stick her in a hijab. That'll be the next thing.
Well, exactly what you're meant
beautiful
to do.
And about. Just cover yourself up.
Madness.
No, she's beautiful and she should be proud of it.
And the thing is, they would never say this about a man, would they? There would never be a man kicked out of the Olympic village for being too beautiful.
And let's be real. The whole reason half of us watch the Olympics is for the attractive athletes.
Of course, I
definitely enjoy the swimming for that reason because they're in a state of undress.
I'm sorry,
I don't mind admitting it.
It's just such a load of rubbish.
Anyway, that's naughty. Speaking of beautiful people, fantastic to see Freddie Flintoff looking fabulous. He's made a big comeback, hasn't he? And a big first interview, Alex. This is in the front of the Sun today.
Yes.
He's been incredibly brave, and he's talking about all the trauma, the nightmares, the flashbacks. I mean, he is lucky to be alive.
I mean, so obviously we're talking about his accident in Top Gear, which he, almost killed him, I believe. It's left him with crippling anxiety. He said he couldn't go out for a very, very long time. It happened 2 years ago now. Man's 46. He's a relatively young man. And he said he barely went out for 7 months because he just couldn't... It did something to him. And I'm really pleased to see that there's more men coming out and talking about these things because... Car accidents happen. It's a really common thing. A lot of people are in car accidents, and it really can have.
You have to get in a car to go anywhere. So.
But he didn't get. There's car accidents. There's car accidents.
Yeah.
This show is. I mean, the things that those of us who appear in front of camera do because there's a camera there that you wouldn't normally do in life.
All I was saying is that he will have to get it back in a car all the time, which will be triggering because he'll be at a junction and he'll be imagining cars coming.
He has trauma. And then there are still bigger questions for the BBC about, you know, the safety procedures. Who decided where the limit was on what they could do? Did they have psychologists and doctors available to them? Because they should do if they're doing something like that.
But Top Gear's no longer, isn't it? Am I right?
No, I mean, this is obviously a couple of years ago, but...
I'd just love to see a show that reviewed cars. Give me an idea what sort of car.
I agree.
That's a sort of old-fashioned idea, but there we go.
We need more sensationalism these days to keep ourselves interested, don't we?
The Star has a front page of Rod Stewart and Donald Trump.
This is very funny. I mean, Rod Stewart, who is partial to a tan himself and ridiculous hair and all the rest of it, but somehow he's still kind of charming. I kind of have a crush on him, actually, I'll be honest. I have a weird crush on Rod Stewart.
You won't be the first.
Yeah, I know. There's loads of us out there, I'm sure.
I'm sure he'll take that as a compliment at 79 years old. That's, so
he's performing in Vegas at the minute, and he gently mocked Donald Trump by showing 4 phases of his life, from pasty to very orange.
Well, he did this. He did this in response to Kamala Harris, and so Trump made comments about Kamala Harris all of a sudden becoming black because of her statements saying she's Indian and she's black, and so. He's making the same statement about Donald Trump, going, I don't know when he became orange.
And it was very
playful. Should look into that.
It was playful and fun.
But it went down badly in the States. Let's take a look at a cloud that the Mail have in page 6 this morning. They say, look familiar, the orange glow
is
amazing. A clue.
It is actually amazing.
Let's have a look at this. We're trying to find it. We've lost it. It's wonderful when it comes. Anyway, so the thing is, this is a meteorological situation here, and it is just as if the gods are playing with the clouds there. Look at that one.
Who it is. The jawline, the hair.
That is incredibly like him. Forget
tan.
Jesus on toast. This really is credible.
You know, I think if you look hard enough, you'll see a lot of things in the clouds. But I can see when you put the word Trump there, all of a sudden you definitely do see it with the hair.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if that isn't actually some kind of gas that he's pumped up there in the shape of himself.
You've even got the finger if you look very closely at the bottom of the cloud.
The Trump-like formation was over London, and it looks like the real thing. So there you go. Let us know if you've ever looked like a cloud before. I don't think I have ever seen a...
There you go.
There you go.
Not quite.
Let's turn our eyes upwards and see what the weather's going to be doing. Here's Alex.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most of us will have a fine day today, but across the northwest there's going to be lots of showers around, and it's a pretty grey start over parts of eastern England. Some mostly light rain and drizzle here, which will continue to edge eastwards across East Anglia over the next few hours before kind of fizzling out. Sunny spells for much of Wales, northern England and southwest England and eastern Scotland. For western Scotland, Northern Ireland, there will be sunny spells, but expect showers to come and go as well, so pretty heavy ones. A few of them for northwest England, but in the sunny spells here, 20 degrees. Could get to 24, 25 across the southeast when the sun comes out later this afternoon. But a fresher feel in the northwest with fairly brisk winds, and look at this, lots of showers just streaming in as we go through the day, with the winds coming from the southwest, far northeast of Scotland, seeing some shelter. So here, not many showers and some good spells of sunshine, but plenty of showers throughout today across Northern Ireland. We'll see some getting into northwest England and at times into Wales, but a good part of England and Wales will be dry for most of the day, and that rain fizzling out certainly by this evening across East Anglia. So a fine end to the day here. For many, it'll be a dry and a fine night across central and eastern parts, but further west, always the likelihood of more showers. And look at this, more wet and windy weather coming into western Scotland as we go through the early hours. It's going to be a soggy start to proceedings here tomorrow. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens, certainly in towns and cities across England and Wales. A little cooler in rural spots, so close to average really for the time of year. Sunny start then for the Midlands and eastern England during Wednesday, and for much of the east it'll stay fine throughout the day, but it will be quite breezy, and certainly further west, gusty winds and plenty of showers. A mix of bright spells, and then the next minute you've got a downpour coming in. Temperatures again close to average, so high teens across the north, low 20s further south.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A65 is closed in both directions at Giggleswick after an accident. On Merseyside, the A41 is closed each way along Chester Street in Tranmere. Green Lane also closed there because of an investigation. In Powys, the A470 is closed each way between Riots and Llangierig after an accident in the early hours of this morning. There's a reduced rail service into and out of Paddington Station in London because of a track fault. The delays of up to a quarter of an hour. Also in London, the A308 is closed along Queen Elizabeth Road in Kingston for emergency repairs. On the M2 in Kent, the eastbound entry slip roads closed at Junction 2 near Strood and Rochester for emergency repairs. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And in Hampshire, the A36 remains closed northbound off the West Wallow Services roundabout for emergency repairs.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On this Tuesday morning, pressure on police as the Prime Minister says a standing army of specialist officers is ready to deal with the protests.
Well, unrest continues as 3 police officers are injured as riots break out in Plymouth overnight.
We'll be talking to the Deputy Leader of the Reform Party, Richard Tice, with us very, very shortly.
Financial fears as markets crash around the world. Are we heading for global recession?
It's time to put the fun into funerals. Well, we're going to be joined by the comedy legend Paul Chuckle. He's lost his brother and he wants to change attitudes towards losing someone.
Well, fantastic night last night at the Olympics. Double gold evening for Team GB as Keely Hodgkinson won the 800 metres. In cycling, the women's team sprint, they broke the world record 3 times before winning the gold medal. Tonight, very busy. Josh Kerr goes against his fierce rival Jakob Ingebrigtsen in the 1500 metre final, and Dina Asher-Smith and Daryl Neita are in the final of the women's 200 metres.
A bit of rain across parts of eastern England today and plenty of showers across western Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in between, many of us will have a fine day. Join me later for a full forecast.
1 minute past 8. A very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and you're watching GB News Breakfast.
Just to recap on what's been going on in the country. Sustained violence in Plymouth. Disorder continued their 7th day after the Southport stabbings.
Well, violent riots have also taken place in Belfast as protesters throw petrol bombs at police cars in a second night of disorder.
Nearly 400 arrests have been made in the last week. Dozens of police officers injured. Shops, cars, homes damaged right across the UK.
And in Birmingham last night, tensions were high, with videos from social media showing a crowd of Muslim men gathering to protect their local mosque.
Well, we're joined now, we're delighted to say, in the studio, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. We say hello, good morning.
Good morning.
And congratulations at the election.
Thank you. Thank you.
Richard Tice. The thing is, Richard, a lot of people are saying these people on the streets, they're speaking for you. They're saying that.
Absolute nonsense. We've condemned all of the violence from any sides, all sides, comprehensively, and it is completely unforgivable. It's inexcusable. What's strange is that no Labour politicians are condemning the horrific scenes we saw in Birmingham last night. Jess Phillips reprimanded me for seeming to suggest that it was out of order for masked men to be marauding around, attacking people. She thought that was justifiable. No violence is justifiable. We're the only party, it seems, that's actually put that out there.
Jess Phillips, the MP for the area.
For the area, that's right, yeah.
The disorder was taking place in Birmingham, and, you know, nobody would disagree. I think, or maybe Jess Phillips might be alone in that, but I think most people would say absolutely it has to be even-handed.
It's all we've got to have equal policing, equal politics, as opposed to what we've currently got. We've got two-tier politics and two-tier policing, and it's completely unacceptable.
Right, I just want you to spell out to people what two-tier means.
What two-tier means is with regard to the politicians, they seem to be, if it's people from the left, then they seem to be excusing what went on yesterday. For example, you had a masked man come up behind a presenter from another channel, swearing, abusing, pointing like a sort of a gun-type scenario with their fingers. That seems to be excusable, but they're essentially anybody who is perceived from the right, then they're far-right thugs. It's all inexcusable. And this is the sort of two-tier politics I'm talking about. In the same way, two-tier policing, we have seen that the police have been instructed to respond differently to certain groups of people who are breaking the law. We've seen it with the pro-Gaza demonstrations, we've seen it with various other demonstrations over recent months, and that's one of the things that I think is really winding people up and upsetting people.
You're saying the police response to what we've been seeing in the past week has been heavy, it's been forceful.
And frankly, and it should be heavy and forceful, because these people are thugs who are breaking the law. But equally, they've got to apply in the same way when people are breaking the law on other marches. Likewise, last night, you cannot have gangs marauding through our cities as we've seen. It's got to stop.
It was the Black Lives Matter comparison that Nigel Farage, your leader, made, which has prompted quite a lot of controversy, I think it's fair to say. I mean, Priti Patel, even a former Home Secretary, said, frankly, it's completely different, closing down a number of roads.
It's not different at all. It's not different at all.
Quote what she said. There's a clear difference between effectively blocking streets and roads to burning down libraries, hotels, food banks and attracting places of worship. Robert Jenrick said, I don't think any of us should be doing anything to make the job of police more difficult at this time. James Cleverly, politicians need to be careful about the language that
So what you've just read out,
slamming Nigel Farage's comments about two-tier policing.
Because they're worried about the success of reform. The truth is, that is the proof of two-tier politics. The Black Lives Matter demonstrations were breaking the law at the time. They were breaking lockdown. You had the current Prime Minister bending the knee in favour of
dogs and horses.
They should have
helicopters.
You're either going to impose the law or you're not. It's very simple.
Well, they did impose the law.
No, they weren't. They didn't. They allowed them to break lockdowns and have demonstrations. And in some cases, there was some very unpleasant scenes. And you're either going to have equal application of the law or you're not. You're going to sort of willingly say we're going to have two-tier policing.
There is policing without fear or favour, exactly as it should be.
And we all know that is not true.
Policing is a non-issue. Those are the words of the Prime Minister.
And that is literally millions of people across the country are laughing at our Prime Minister for such utter, arrant nonsense.
What is an issue, rightly or wrongly, is the views that these people hold. The people have been protesting over the past week. I put it to you that I suppose you wouldn't disagree with me that if there is any legitimacy to their views, they're losing the argument because of the way they are carrying things out.
There's no legitimacy to violence and thuggery. We're all at that, and we were the first people to condemn it. And let me remind everybody, I was the first person to stand up for the Manchester police officers, right, who were brutally and viciously attacked, when everybody else was claiming about police brutality. But the point about this, Eamonn, is there is genuine concern, which the politicians who have enabled mass immigration don't want to talk about, out of absolute terrified humiliation. There is genuine concern about the impact of mass immigration on our communities, on our society, on our prosperity, on our public services.
Talking about this, no one will address this, and however distasteful, however unpalatable, surely we've all got to come to a stage where both sides are listened to and both sides are talked to and say, what is your problem?
In a sense, Eamonn, that's why we got 4.1 million votes at the general election, because we called it the immigration election. We were the only people prepared to actually say we've got to freeze immigration, except non-essential healthcare-related immigration. We've got to stop the boats by picking up and taking back. And I think that actually now has the overwhelming support of a significant, probably the majority of the British people. And we've got to have a responsible...
Put it to you, Richard, that by these guys carrying out their actions and their protests the way they are, a lot of people will find it very hard to support them as a result.
No one's supporting violence or thuggery, Eamonn. There is a massive difference between that, which is horrific and breaking the law, and a genuine, respectful, open discussion, rational discussion about the right levels of immigration that works for both sides, whether it works for the host nation or whether it works for people coming into work in a nation. And it's about working, it's about integrating, it's about speaking the language, and then you can have what I call smart immigration. Great thing. We're all up for that. But mass uncontrolled immigration, where people don't integrate, don't work, and don't speak the language, is a very bad thing. I'm seeing it even in my own constituency and elsewhere. And we've got to be brave enough, however uncomfortable it is, to talk about it.
Richard, we know you. You're a gentleman, best of British, a perfectly lovely, delightful
You're very kind. What a good morning.
Well, no, but, we know who you are and what you're about. But do you, in your heart, worry about some of the language that some of your colleagues have used? I'm talking about Lee Anderson, who had the Tory whip removed for making comments that were considered racist and Islamophobic, because there are people who say those words that he used, that the words of your party have legitimised the actions that we've seen by welcoming him into your party after he's been thrown out for racism. That's a member of Parliament. If he can say things like that, then sure enough, I can read an arson manual and plot an attack on an asylum lawyer's house. Why not? I mean, people are making that.
Because what Lee said...
Language matters.
Language does matter, absolutely right. What Lee said, he admitted it was clumsy, but it was neither Islamophobic and it wasn't racist. And by the way, he was returned to Parliament with a significant majority this time around, because he stands up for British working people who are furious at what mainstream politicians have done. I repeat, we condemn the violence and thuggery, absolutely. We have stood up more than anybody in favour of the police officers on the front line and the brave work they are doing. And the letters I get from police officers thanking me, so all of that. But, we've got to have an open, rational debate. That's why we've asked to recall Parliament, that the Prime Minister is refusing. Remember, David Cameron recalled Parliament in 2011 when we last had significant riots. If we're not prepared to discuss this, if we're going to hide it under the carpet, then actually bad things happen.
But Richard, I would say to you there is no willingness to discuss this at all. And in fairness, I sit as a journalist, I watch other news programmes, and I hear you and your members being attacked consistently. And I say, but that's not what they said. I've heard them condemning this violence. They do not stand for this. They do not associate these people. Nor do I think a lot of these people openly associate themselves with you, in fairness. So where is the mainstream news media getting this and trying to make, and definitely making, a connection between you, your party and the violence?
We saw it during the general election with the lies perpetrated by Channel 4 and with what they did there, which was a complete stitch-up. They're terrified.
They would deny that, yeah.
They're absolutely... The establishment...
I watched them last night. They said it last night. The reality also pointed to this channel as well.
The truth is, the establishment and much of the academic media and world and part of the mainstream media are terrified because we tell it as it is. However difficult, however uncomfortable, we all want a successful, prosperous society where we work together, integrate together, family, community.
I would have to keep on saying on this, and I know people find this unpalatable, but however distasteful this is, you've got to talk to both sides. I speak from the Northern Irish situation, and people say, oh, you can't sit down and talk to thugs. They did sit down and talk to thugs in Northern Ireland, and they did it behind people's back, and then they did it in front of people's faces. So what way do you see this going? If this is to be resolved, and we have to have this resolved, and I feel for people who are asylum seekers and migrants in this country and the fear that they must be going through at the moment.
I think, frankly, millions of British people are afraid of what's happening to our country, about the lack of prosperity, about the inability to access public services, about the lack of housing rates. Millions of people are afraid of what's going on. And we've got to talk about it rationally. You're quite right about what happened in Northern Ireland. I'm not talking to any of these thugs attacking and burning down hotels or beating people. I'm just not doing it. OK, we can do that. We can have a rational discussion amongst politicians, amongst leaders, amongst community groups. But we've got to do that, I think, by recalling Parliament and talking about it and being open about it.
Richard, what about the criticisms that were levelled at Nigel Farage last week for sharing what a lot of people considered to be misinformation, and certainly insinuating also that there was knowledge being withheld by the police, which a lot of people have said actually stoked many of the problems? Do you think that was unfair criticism?
It was completely unfair criticism, once again levelled by the establishment and the politicians from the two main parties. All Nigel did, quite rightly, is saying, there are questions to be asked here. He then said, I don't know the answers, but I do think it is legitimate. And millions of people feel this, by the way. Every time there's a horrific incident, a horrific murder or stabbing, the uniformed soldier who was brutally stabbed a couple of weeks ago, the horrific murder of those 3 children in Southport, instantly the police come out and say, it's non-terror related, it's mental health. How do they know so quickly? How are they so sure? Really? I think it's perfectly legitimate to ask these questions and to say, I hope you're telling us the truth.
Yeah.
This is very, very complicated. I mean, we may be on the verge of another global recession, which will only add to all of these problems. A lot of these people are unhappy. They feel disenfranchised as well. How do you think that... What should the next step be in all of this? Because we've still got a long part of the summer to go.
You're absolutely right. The police have got to be supported to do their work, even-handed, and to stop the rioting. And I'm completely in favour of these 24-hour courts. By the way, they should also apply to the rioters in Hare Hills and Leeds. Thousands of them. We heard very late how many of those people had been arrested. So, again, even-handed policing, stop the rioting, but at the same time, the politicians have got to come back and talk about what we talked about in the general election. We've got to have a sensible immigration policy that works for our country, that reassures people so that we can get some prosperity back, improve people's lives, and then we can actually get on top of our public services, healthcare, housing, so that works for everybody.
And part of that debate, obviously, a discussion about what kind of levels of immigration are acceptable and what people want to do about illegal migration and all the rest of it. Part of the debate also has to be about how we learn to live together again. And we've had Elon Musk saying we're on the brink of civil war. We've imported this kind of divided politics into this country. What's Reform's proposals to try and help us become a more peaceful country so that we don't go down the route that Elon Musk...
Well, actually,
it's so important.
It is vitally important. And already we're seeing some wonderful pictures in the newspapers this morning of community groups, different communities, different faiths coming together in the clear-up. And that actually... that's the right response. It starts there, but it does start with actually everybody recognising that the way for a successful society, you've got to work, you've got to integrate, and you've got to speak the language.
What has been the reaction to the appointment of your new chairman? He himself a Muslim, a big successful businessman, Zia Youssef. There were a few comments from Reform members saying that they didn't want a Muslim chairman. How has that settled down?
News to me. I haven't heard any such comments. I've heard absolute enthusiasm for a brilliant chairman, Zia, who I think was in here yesterday. He's a fantastic chairman, and that actually is in a sense, it reinforces that we want people from all faiths, all skin colour, genders, sexuality. None of us care. We just want to get on, be successful, grow our economy, make people more prosperous, and improve the quality of life. In particular, though, it's for the lowest paid, the least well off. That's what our policies are about.
Yeah, and that affects people who are Muslim or people who are not Muslim as well. How frustrating is it for you, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after a general election, to be elected, to have this momentum behind you, and then to be told you're going on your holidays?
Look, everybody it's right to have holidays, but when there's a crisis,
you're really wanting to get into work.
Look, the reality is we've all had a very busy period, so we all do need a break. But equally, we've got a national crisis, and I think that politicians should get back into the chamber and talk about it and say, right, we recognise there's a lot of anxiety and frustration in many communities around the country, and we've got to have a national endeavour to get on top of it. And I think to recognise that our policies about freezing immigration except essential health and social care, about stopping the boats, would actually give people huge confidence, and we can move forward.
Okay.
Richard Tice, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for having your say. Just as to what Jess Phillips said about all of this, we've got her statement here, and there it is. It reads like this on the screen. That's it. Sorry, it's too small for me to read. But so anyways, thank you for giving me that in such a small piece. But anyway, there we go. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom today.
Well, 3 water companies are reportedly facing a combined record fine of £168 million after a series of failings, including sewage spills. Thames Water, Northumbrian and Yorkshire Water were issued the penalty by the regulator Ofwat. Thames is facing the biggest fine of £104 million.
The Welsh Parliament will be recalled from its summer recess today to nominate a new First Minister. Welsh Labour leader has emerged as the sole candidate to succeed Vaughan Gething as the party leader, and is due to become Wales's first female First Minister.
Nearly a third of people put on an NHS soup and shakes diet have reversed type 2 diabetes within a year. That's according to a major trial. This diet involves 12 weeks on low-calorie, nutritionally complete total diet replacement products such as soups, shakes and bars.
And we'll stick our nose outdoors. Here's Alex Deacon with the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most of us will have a fine day today, but across the northwest there's going to be lots of showers around, and it's a pretty grey start over parts of eastern England. Some mostly light rain and drizzle here, which will continue to edge eastwards across East Anglia over the next few hours before kind of fizzling out. Sunny spells for much of Wales, northern England and southwest England and eastern Scotland. For western Scotland, Northern Ireland, there will be sunny spells, but expect showers to come and go as well, so pretty heavy ones. A few of them for northwest England, but in the sunny spells here, 20 degrees. Could get to 24 or 25 across the southeast when the sun comes out later this afternoon. But a fresher feel in the northwest with fairly brisk winds, and look at this, lots of showers just streaming in as we go through the day, with the winds coming from the southwest, far northeast of Scotland, seeing some shelter. So here, not many showers and some good spells of sunshine, but plenty of showers throughout today across Northern Ireland. We'll see some getting into northwest England and at times into Wales, but a good part of England and Wales will be dry for most of the day, and that rain fizzling out certainly by this evening across East Anglia. So a fine end to the day here. For many, it'll be a dry and a fine night across central and eastern parts, but further west, always the likelihood of more showers. And look at this, more wet and windy weather coming into western Scotland as we go through the early hours. It's going to be a soggy start to proceedings here tomorrow. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens, certainly in towns and cities across England and Wales. A little cooler in rural spots, so close to average really for the time of year. Sunny start then for the Midlands and Eastern England during Wednesday, and for much of the East it'll stay fine throughout the day, but it will be quite breezy, and certainly further west, gusty winds and plenty of showers. A mix of bright spells, and then the next minute you've got a downpour coming in. Temperatures again close to average, so high teens across the north, low 20s further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
And then we transport you to the idea, the dream life of having £30,000 extra in your bank. And here's how you could do it.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Stay with us. Coming up, we will be speaking to the comedy legend Paul Chuckle, one half of the Chuckle brothers. But are funerals a laughing matter? He thinks they should be. Stay tuned for that.
Well, from us to you, that's what we're talking about next.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
We're joined now by GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who is outside Buckingham Palace for us.
Well, let's start with the expenditure, shall we? From the last year, it was £89.1 million. That's what the royal household spent. And one of the core parts of that expenditure was, of course, their big event last May, the coronation. £800,000 went into that. And then we should look at the engagements. You mentioned the number that King Charles made last year. Well, £4.2 million on those engagements, much of that travel. And then finally, how much that costs us all? Well, it's £1.29 per person. That's the cost of the monarchy to the taxpayer. But that really hides the truth of how that cash comes about, because all of the money that the royal household spends is actually theirs being given back to them by the Treasury. It comes from the Crown Estate surplus. That's a £16 billion portfolio they have, and their sovereign grant is made up of the surplus from 2 years prior. So in the year to 2022, there was about £350 million knocking around from the surplus. That was given all to the Treasury, and they were given back 15% as their core sovereign grant. Additional 10% was given towards the resurfacing of Buckingham Palace. That's been going on since Parliament voted on it in 2017. It's expected to take 10 years. But all in all, that's been about £86.3 million. And as you heard, the expenditure was £89 million. So how do they mix that gap? How do they close that gap in and cost out? Well, they make their own money as well from additional sources of income. And that was the gates, the receipts to Windsor Castle and their many palaces across the country, where people have paid about £10 million to visit in the last year.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done. Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Losing someone, saying goodbye, never easy, but there is a way, maybe, to make it slightly more manageable, depending how you think.
Yeah, we're going to speak now to the comedian and British icon, frankly, Paul Chuckle. He thinks it's time to put the fun into funeral. This is after, sadly, he lost his brother, Barry, and Paul now wants to highlight what he perceives to be changing attitudes to the way we hold funerals.
Well, Paul, a very good morning to you. First of all, condolences about Barry. We all knew him, and obviously you still miss him.
Yes, good morning to you too. Yeah, obviously, it was 6 years ago yesterday that he passed away. It's gone very quick, but I still feel he's with me. But as in Barry's funeral case, you know, it was a thing of celebrating his life, really. He, all his friends were there, people we've worked with over the years, and we just talked all afternoon and evening about his life. It's more of a celebration.
New research from Co-op Funeral Care says that people are more coming round to this way of thinking, that in the way they dress and what they sing, and taking selfies at funerals, all sorts of things. And by and large, I mean, bearing in mind how you said goodbye to Barry, which I believe was at Rotherham Football Club, was it?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's always a very sad day when you lose someone. But as a report from Co-op Funeral Care says, a funeral doesn't have to be a sad day, which it wasn't there. See, Barry and myself always been big Rotherham United fans, and the thing was to have his funeral, really, most of his funeral on the day at New York Stadium. And we talked about
it doesn't have to be, Paul, you say it doesn't have to be a sad day, but I'm listening to you today, and you still seem sad.
Well, no, obviously I still miss Barry, but I'm not sad at all, because, you know, I just think about the great days we had together, the fun we had on stage. You know, he's still here. He's still here with me. And, you know, it's you could celebrate his life, as I said, rather than feel sad all the time.
Yeah, and you know, there's the poems that we often hear read at funerals saying, you know, don't cry for me, you know, go on, live your life, all those sorts of things. But, I mean, I just speak for myself. I mean, I obviously, when I do pass, I hope that there will be happy, fond memories and a moment to celebrate me. But I want people to be sad. And I wonder if there is, you know, is there a danger of becoming a bit trite about it all? That, you know, almost by laughing at a funeral, you're almost saying you don't care, or, you know, that's my concern. My sort of instinct is, oh no, you mustn't laugh at a funeral. This is a sad day, fundamentally.
Well, yeah. Well, we found it, you know, at the start of the funeral, obviously everybody was in tears. If you saw the funeral itself that was on TV at the time, it was, you know, I was in tears, very much so. But as the day went on, the more you talked about his life, and he came back alive. He was sort of there, you know. He was like with us, if you know what I mean. And it was still, obviously, you're still weepy, and you have to grieve when somebody dies. I believe you do have to cry, because it does physically hurt inside. So yeah, you cry, but you all cry together, and then you start talking about the person that's passed. And according to Co-op Funeral Care, you know, you should celebrate with, you know, with whatever the person was. If he rode bicycles all his life, then get all his biking friends there, get the bikes in, you know, whatever you want. A funeral should be whatever you want.
Yeah.
You've got strong ideas of what you want for your funeral.
Well, commemoration, I think sometimes choosing music. I mean, you can have hymns and requiem songs and various things like that, but sometimes a song that was relevant to that person, I think, is good. I'm not in favour of people wearing shorts and Hawaiian T-shirts and football shirts and all that sort of thing, but a lot of people are. but I think people are less religious. I like the sanctimony of a funeral, the seriousness of a funeral. I would like a religious service as well. And I definitely think it should be a requirement, an absolute requirement, to wear black.
I share pretty much all of those views, quite traditional, but that's not to say I don't want people to have.
Yes, people will laugh as well.
Funeral.
I mean, I think in Ireland we do it very well. We get drunk, we laugh, we cry, and it's all over in 3 days, which is different in England. It can take a month or so, Paul.
Yes, it certainly can, yeah. But when my funeral, I'd like, because I DJ a lot now, I'd love to have my funeral in a club, for instance.
Right.
You know, you do whatever you want and let people dress up as they would go into a club. I know what you mean about the black tie and things. You can have that if you wish. It's according to court, funeral care, anything you want. You know, whatever you want to be. You can be very sombre. As you know, in some countries, it's a month of celebrations, which they call celebrations of somebody's life when they die, every day.
Yeah, it's... I don't know what I was going to say there.
Well, I was just thinking about Barry, and you know, obviously we know you as the Chuckle brothers, and what is it that, I suppose, if there was one thing that you would love to do, pick up a phone to him, have a pint with him? I mean, what's the thing you miss the most, I suppose, about your brother?
Actually working together, you know, that's the one thing I do miss, but I still feel he's with me when I walk on stage, like in pantomime or whatever, acting. I just feel he's there all the time with me. So, that's what I miss. The main thing I miss.
He'll be there. I always think when you remember somebody, you think about them, they're never gone. They're there. That influence is with you all the time. I think about my mother and father every day, and I realise that's the influence they've had on me, and that's the way they would think about me, and that keeps them alive, and that keeps anybody who you were close to alive. But Paul, appreciate your thoughts on things, and we're going to get reaction from people to see how they want to be remembered and what they would do in similar circumstances. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Paul Chuckle.
Do let us know your thoughts on this morning. It's really one of those topics that actually we thought would go gangbusters on the Your Say this morning, but not many people have let us know, and we're really keen. Are Eamonn and I on our own on this, that we're quite sort of traditional? We want the religious service and the black, and then everybody to get drunk afterwards? Or are you more in favour of the more modern approach? Let us know your thoughts. gbnews.com/.
I think the less religious people become, the formality
disappears,
goes out of it, maybe as results. But there you go. Right, happier matters, the Olympics. Paul Coit with that after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A65 is closed in both directions at Giggleswick after an accident. On the M621 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed eastbound. Someone's broken down at junction 1 at Beeston in Leeds, causing delays. On the M1 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed after an accident on the northbound entry slip road at junction 39 from the A636 near Wakefield, causing delays. On Merseyside, the A41 is closed each way along New Chester Road in Tranmere, with Green Lane also closed for an investigation. There are delays towards Birkenhead as you divert. In London, Queen Elizabeth Road in Kingston upon Thames is closed for emergency repairs. And in Hampshire, the A36 is closed northbound off the West Wallow Services roundabout at Hour for emergency repairs. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Paul, we've got the sport, and Isabel and I are planning his funeral. How would you want us to send you off?
I think...
Music, any music?
You know what? I know, Isabel, I know you want tears.
Oh, yeah.
Black...
Oh, there would be.
You know, the horses, everything.
Black lace.
I'm not... You know, I'll be honest with you. It doesn't worry me. I'm not going to be there. So I don't really care. You can do whatever you like. I honestly feel that way.
I definitely don't want horses. They're creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, especially when they have that...
Yeah.
All this,
want that.
Yeah.
No.
And the big thing on the head.
And I want my family to carry the coffin, not the hearse.
I've never... I've got to tell you, though, I've never done...
It's heavy. You've never done it?
No, well, no. Something...
It's very heavy.
I don't...
I know, it doesn't bear thinking about. Don't...
We were carrying my father...
I'd fall out.
...up to a traffic light, and it went red.
Oh, really?
And we
Wasn't it?
We sort of all stopped.
Oh, no.
And then somebody pushed me. And
Hold on, you're walking, and the traffic light was red, and you decided to stop.
Well, they're not going to risk going to a red light.
And then we walked through it. The guy said to me, "That was always like Leonard. He never stopped it." And that was it. Right. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Right. From red to gold.
Very good. Red. Let's go red to gold. Actually, let's have a look at the medals. Shall we have a look at the medals table? Let's look at how things are going. I know they're always unofficial, the medals table, but there it is. Now, look, United States are top. Now, they made me laugh last week because the United States did not have as many golds as other countries, but they had more medals in total. NBC and the States were top of the medals table. So this is how it works. It's on golds. It's all unofficial, but this is the way they want it to be. 21 golds, United States. Then we got China. Now, look how things start getting close and competitive. Not that we've ever been competitive with France or Australia ever in our lives, but they are one gold medal ahead of Great Britain.
If you did an Adam Peaty and took China out because they're, accused of cheating, then you could have...
Well, that would leave one gold medal for China, so...
Yeah.
I wouldn't dream of saying such a thing. No. But anyway, we've got plenty more chances. Yesterday, the women's team sprint in the cycling was terrific yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. Emma Finucane and Sophie Capewell and Katie Marchant, team sprint. That's when the three of them go off together, and then you've got the other team on the other side, and they go around the same track. Came through with a world record. Three races. They broke the world record every time.
Well done.
You can't ask more than that,
can
you?
The song says... That's why we're going for gold.
Yeah, it was TV show, was it?
Yes.
3-point question, select. Was that what it was?
No.
Henry Kelly.
Henry Kelly, yeah.
Yeah.
What's select?
He would always used to say that in the quiz. He'd go, select.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
It was Henry, yeah.
I don't remember the rest of it. Going for gold. And you know what? That only came out on TV to win a chance to go to the I'm very, very serious about this, the 1988 Olympics in Seoul. So that was the main prize, and that was the reason it was called Going for Gold.
Amazing.
How about that?
Love it.
Anyway, Keely Hodgkinson.
She's just the star for me.
She is a star.
Pin-up girl for our
22 years of age.
Yeah, what a star. What, you know, I mean, I know we're not allowed to say what next when they've just won a gold, but what next?
Well, more goals.
Yeah.
It's going to continue, and who knows how far she can go. You know, the world is her oyster.
Well, you were telling us about people trying to replicate the speed that she does on a running machine.
It was very funny, actually. They tried an event where they had people on a running machine to run at the pace of Keely Hodgkinson in 800 metres. Obviously, it's 2 laps around the track. And people lasted about 5 seconds and were falling off immediately. But she is so good. She is so quick. She is so young. Everybody was talking about Jessica Ennis back in 2012. She was the poster girl of the Games. And this is ours, Keely Hodgkinson. And so 800 metres, that's what she runs. That's what she's done. So it all looks very good. You know what? 1908. I do have a little something. This is when
London Olympics.
Shall we have a look? This is the difference. It's not much difference. There we are.
Which one is you?
That was me there in the middle. Look at that. Look at that. There's you. Now, this is it. It was at White City. So it was the London Olympics. Oh, look, not a very good dismount. Look, they have someone. Is he dead on there, or is he still... There's someone actually on the top of the pommel horse. On the vault.
Call it frog's leap over a vault.
There we are. There's
probably
pole vault.
3'4". He's jumping there.
It probably is. You know, the world record was broken yesterday, and it was a lot higher than that. There's the high jump, well before Fosbury Flop.
What was that?
I think that's just someone fell off the top of a building. Now this is the discus. No spin. There we are. That went 3 yards. That was a new world record. And of course the tug of war they used to have back in 1908.
That's proper sport, that.
It is.
You wouldn't laugh at that because all the nonsense they stick in nowadays is a whole different ball game. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Paul.
What stuff?
For the trip down memory lane.
What stuff?
What are you talking about? Huh?
What nonsense?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Oh, in the... What, the...
Well, no, there's so many sports shouldn't be there.
Skateboarding is today, by the way.
What?
Skateboarding is today.
That's it. Oh, perfect example. Anyway, back after the break. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
Well, I'm joined now by royal biographer and former royal photographer, Ian Lloyd. Ian.
Hello, Jacob.
Thank you
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be great, isn't it? The opportunity to go around and see where the King comes onto the balcony from. Really interesting insight to how Buckingham Palace works.
It's exciting. I went yesterday, there was a press preview, and the thing that struck me first of all is that if you're the King or the late Queen and you're on the balcony, you can't see the Mall. I mean, we all see people coming down from the top, you know, thousands of people crowding in towards Buckingham Palace. They can't see it because of this great monument to Queen Victoria called the Queen Victoria Memorial, or they call it the wedding cake, but it blocks the view. So apparently the King has a TV in there, and the late Queen did as well. So what they do is they when they're waiting to come on, they're watching the TV to see how the crowd's getting nearer the palace. And the other thing that struck me is when we were on it looking down, is you can actually see individual faces in the crowd out there, because we looked out, you know. So they do get a good view of what's happening directly underneath the palace, you know.
So they can see individuals. So if there's a friendly face in the crowd, they can see that person and possibly even wave. But they can't see that enormous mass of people you get at the big events that goes back towards Admiralty Arch.
The other thing I learned is there's a great historical link, because the person that put the east wing on the palace, because it was originally 3 sides, and Queen Victoria had, of course, 9 children, so they had to build a 4th side for all the nurseries and things. Edward Blord was the architect, but the master builder was Thomas Cubitt.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, Just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Thanks very much indeed for your comments on funerals and the latest trends at them. Leo says, I do hate it when you're asked not to attend a funeral in black and come in colours. Now, Leo says, I need to wear black because what it does is it helps me process my own emotions of loss. So we've got Nikki and we've got Alex here, and they've been reviewing the papers today, and we're talking about people's attitude to death and funerals. Are you a black person or not a black person?
I think it's really up to the individual and like, what their wishes are for their funeral.
Wish? I bet you're rainbow or
I'm colours and singing and dancing and alcohol all the way, even though I've stopped drinking myself.
What if I put an invite and I went strict attendance and black only?
Oh, yes, your
Would that
funeral.
work?
Yeah.
Your funeral
should honour the wishes of the dead.
Alex?
I definitely think that you should wear black to funerals. I think it takes away it being about you and you thinking about what you're wearing.
Yes.
It puts the focus on the person that's passed away. And but other than that, I'm up for funerals being more of a celebration. When my grandfather passed away earlier in the year, we had a wonderful ceremony for him. It was beautiful. It had lots of music and happy moments and laughter.
That's nice.
It was great.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. But some elements of ceremony we should keep, and I think the black suit...
Yeah, Stephen says, after my wife died, after 10 years battling cancer, there was no way I felt like chuckling at her funeral, I can tell you. And I do think there is an element of that. If it's been a really long, traumatic, awful loss...
Think of the release she has.
Before their time, you know.
I think that's the difficult one. I do think so. Again, unfortunately, family friend passed away very young. He was only in his 60s of cancer. But there was still some elements of humour about him because he was a funny person. He loved telling a joke, and it wouldn't have been his funeral without a joke in it. So very, very should be about. This is what I mean. It should be about the person that's passed away.
It's very personal, but there should be more choice about how funerals are conducted and more variety. Because when someone dies, you are so locked into buying a certain type of coffin. I did it for my dad, and I chose him a wicker basket because that's what he would have preferred. It's kind of like the last act of love.
So can I say to you, Nikki, forget the wicker basket. I don't want the wicker basket.
What do you want,
I want a glorious mahogany with gold handles.
With gold handles.
Yes.
And a mausoleum.
Maybe a glass top. A glass top on it as well.
Oh,
state funeral as well.
In the Disney films where the princes would be in a coffin and show them.
One last chance.
Sean says Irish funerals have been to quite a few. There's tears, but always loads of laughter. And that is absolutely true as well.
Speaking of the Irish, can we go through some of the stories that caught my eye this morning? Nikki, this one about soothing Irish accents. Dubliners like Father Ted have the sexiest accent.
Can I ask you all, can you tell the difference between a Dublin accent and other Irish accents?
Yes, because my great-grandmother was from Dublin, and she had a sort of half Dublin, half Yorkshire accent, which was really intriguing. The thing about Irish people and Yorkshire people is they talk as much as each other, so it definitely works in a family. That's where I get it from. But
Do you know how I tell the difference? It's similar to New Zealand or Australian. I don't want to offend anybody here, but they say Australians is more of the slang way of speaking, is where New Zealanders use the T's and they're more they pronunciate more. The same for Northern Irish people, I think.
Once you tune into it, you can hear
enunciate.
Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, got it. Seagulls, Alex.
Yes. So, has anyone had a chip stolen from a seagull before?
Well, I actually think they're a serious problem.
So do I.
I really do.
Horrid.
I think they're vermin-ridden, and I think we have probably created, by building tar blocks, for instance, seagulls see these as cliffs.
Yeah, that's right.
It's really, really awful.
Well, I lived in Aberdeen for a couple of years, and they are massive up there. They are huge, absolutely, like dinosaurs. So anyway, to this story here, it's quite an interesting way of dealing with seagulls. So if you are being attacked by seagulls, and they are after your food, this professor, Paul Graham, advises standing firm against them and looking them in the eyes.
Oh, no. Who's got the courage to do that? Definitely not me. And I was brought up at the Yorkshire seaside, fending off the seagulls from ships. The other thing is, if you've got a dog, and Eamonn, I know you'll appreciate this, you're petrified of the dog getting attacked by a seagull.
Oh, I think they could lift my dog and fly away with it. I think my dog could provide dinner.
Dog as well.
Yeah.
So when he was a puppy, I used to be terrified of someone, well, not someone, a bird coming and attacking him.
Yeah.
But apparently, look, who's got the gumption to look them in the eye?
Also,
not
how
me?
can you look a seagull in the eye? Are their eyes not
agree.
sideways?
Yeah.
Their eyes are the side of the head.
It's a bit of a and they are fast as well. They just come at you. They've got no fear of
Just have a gun and shoot them, basically. That's what you need to do there. Alexa can go rogue. Nikki, tell us about this.
Well, we hear so many stories about Alexas recording conversations they shouldn't be and all the rest of it. But this is an Alexa that started blasting music at high volume all night long, and firefighters actually had to break into somebody's house to try and deal with it.
They're
a complete nuisance. I think it's time to get rid of them.
My husband just bought a children's Alexa so it could play bedtime stories for our daughter.
It's so invasive.
We've been having a row this morning. He said, Poppy's happy, she's listening to her stories in bed. I don't want
You could just put a radio on
in my daughter's bedroom.
I completely agree with you as well.
What's bizarre about this story, despite this Alexa being so loud, is that the owner slept through the entire thing.
Yeah.
She slept through it all while her neighbours were all awake.
She needs a medical check.
Yeah.
When can you wear sandals, Alex?
Never.
See, okay, so this is an opinion piece, right? Just to be clear, someone is saying that it's finally okay for men to wear sandals in the office, but foot grooming is vital. I don't think wearing sandals in the office is appropriate.
It depends on the sandal.
And it depends on the
Not
job.
flip-flops.
If you work as a lifeguard, sure.
Or the job.
Prime Minister? No.
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 But lifeguard, yes. Maybe some tech jobs you could wear a Jesus sandal.
I just think, where does it end? Where does it end?
But you've got to have a pedicure, even if you're a man. And
Can't you wear
perfectly
socks
acceptable.
with your sandals?
Absolutely not.
Apparently that's all the
Socks
rage.
and sliders is a thing. My husband does it.
Sliders is a thing, yeah.
I'm too old for that.
I just personally don't think it's okay, and I get people who have sweaty feet.
A brogue is perfectly acceptable.
I'm not about that.
Or
I
a
think
loafer.
Put some shoes on.
You're always very smart, Alex.
Thank you, I
have to
do
say.
try.
You are dapper, Alex, it's true.
Yeah. Eamonn, I don't see you as a sandals kind of guy.
I've never been able to put on a pair. What about the sandals that have the...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, they're awful.
Flip-flop. And they just make me raw.
Yeah, they rub against your toes.
Oh, yeah, for 24 hours you get a bit of... And then you get...
And then you build up some resistance.
Yeah.
Me and Isabel know.
No, I'm not a fan. I will wear a croc. I do like a croc.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, never a
No, I remember on that one.
Never
Croc
a
is
croc.
great.
Alex,
you can
you
put them
let
into
me-
sport mode as well, and you can get pretty fast with them, yeah.
See, me and Isabel are of the generation where it's like, no way, ever.
No, these, I'm not sure about these, man. I think I've strong enough. It's the people who use these. We're talking about dash cams. And all this snoopy type of person, middle-aged men who wear shorts and sandals, they wear sandals. And they go about and they see things on their dash cams.
Yeah.
And they feel compelled to report everything. Now, I personally just want to slap somebody like this. But what's your view?
It's like vigilantes have taken over, isn't it? It's just everyone's a reporter on the traffic now. It does make some entertaining social media content, I will say, every now and then. But the police, this is a story about police receiving record numbers of dashcam videos, and I know Nikki wants to talk a little bit more about this. But they've increased quite dramatically, I believe, haven't they?
Yeah, so there's actually a national dashcam safety portal which the police are using to collect evidence, which they then use for traffic offences and prosecutions. There are 24,000 clips sent in the first half of this year alone. And so it's making the police's job easier. But I agree with you.
There aren't any police. There are not any police to process this stuff.
Well, the surveillance issue is, that's massive. I mean, we talk about sometimes cameras come in useful.
Yeah.
For example, body cams if somebody's being attacked or...
somebody calls to your front door.
Exactly.
That all got picked up on a dash cam from a bus.
Yes, and doorbell
we would
cameras.
never have known that she got into the car with Wayne Couzens if it wasn't for a dash cam.
But it just feels quite lazy on a level, isn't it?
There's certainly some really good applications for having a dash cam. I know taxi drivers need it for abuse in the car and things like that. But then you do get these people who go rogue with it. And I noticed it's becoming more popular with bicycle users as well.
Yeah.
And they seem to be the ones who are most agitated on the roads, frankly. But there we go.
OK, guys, thank you both very much indeed. Lovely having you in today, Nikki and Alex. Thank you. And I was going to say the news is they won't be back. They won't be back. That's them done.
Not today,
next week.
Next week they will. But I'll tell you who will be back is our weatherman, Alex Deakin. Good morning, Alex.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most of us will have a fine day today, but across the northwest there's going to be lots of showers around, and it's a pretty grey start over parts of eastern England. Some mostly light rain and drizzle here, which will continue to edge eastwards across East Anglia over the next few hours before kind of fizzling out. Sunny spells for much of Wales, northern England and southwest England and eastern Scotland. For western Scotland, Northern Ireland, there will be sunny spells, but expect showers to come and go as well, some pretty heavy ones. A few of them for northwest England, but in the sunny spells here, 20 degrees, could get to 24, 25 across the southeast when the sun comes out later this afternoon. But a fresher feel in the northwest with fairly brisk winds, and look at this, lots of showers just streaming in as we go through the day, with the winds coming from the southwest, far northeast of Scotland, seeing some shelter. So here, not many showers and some good spells of sunshine, but plenty of showers throughout today across Northern Ireland. We'll see some getting into northwest England and at times into Wales, but a good part of England and Wales will be dry for most of the day, and that rain fizzling out certainly by this evening across East Anglia. So a fine end to the day here. For many, it'll be a dry and a fine night across central and eastern parts, but further west, always the likelihood of more showers. And look at this, more wet and windy weather coming into western Scotland as we go through the early hours. It's going to be a soggy start to proceedings here tomorrow. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens, certainly in towns and cities across England and Wales. A little cooler in rural spots, so close to average really for the time of year. Sunny start then for the Midlands and eastern England during Wednesday, and for much of the east it'll stay fine throughout the day, but it will be quite breezy, and certainly further west, gusty winds and plenty of showers. A mix of bright spells, and then the next minute you've got a downpour coming in. Temperatures again close to average, so high teens across the north, low 20s further south.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A65 is closed in both directions at Giggleswick after an accident. On Merseyside, the A41 is closed each way along New Chester Road in Tranmere, with Green Lane also closed for an investigation causing delays. In Shropshire, the A5 is closed westbound off the end of the M54 between Telford and Shrewsbury after an accident causing queues. In London, Queen Elizabeth Road in Kingston upon Thames is closed for emergency repairs. In Hampshire, the A36 remains closed northbound for repairs along Crawley Hill off the West Wellow Services roundabout at Hour. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 7 and 5 from Hedge End to the turn for Eastleigh and Southampton Airport, with queues towards there from junction 9 at Fareham. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. David from Kent was our last big winner. Listen to what he had to say about getting that winning call.
Hi, I'm David from Kent and I won £15,000 and it couldn't have come at a better time. I was gobsmacked. What have you got to lose for what it costs? In fact, I've done it again this week, so I'd recommend it to anybody.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true, that. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Pressure on police. The Prime Minister says a standing army of specialist officers are ready to deal with violent protests.
Yeah, unrest continues. 3 police officers are injured. Riots have broken out in Plymouth last night.
We'll be talking to the Deputy Leader, or we'll be rerunning that interview, the Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice, in just a moment.
Decision time for Democrat nominee Kamala Harris, as she's expected to announce her running mate ahead of a Philadelphia rally.
Financial fears as the markets have been crashing around the world. We ask if we're heading for a global recession.
A bit of rain across parts of eastern England today and plenty of showers across western Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in between, many of us will have a fine day. Join me later for a full forecast.
9 o'clock. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast. Lots of you have been very good on your say this morning. Thanks for getting in touch. On a range of topics. We've been talking about funerals a little bit, haven't we? This one from Anne. RE Funerals. I'm a practicing Christian. I've told my family no dark clothing is to be worn at my funeral. It should be a celebration of a loved one's life. Therefore, I'm planning it myself to save my family what can be a difficult job at a difficult time.
Talking about difficult jobs, on flexible working, we talk about this fact that a lot of parents want to be at home during school holidays and only work term times. Sue says on flexible working, a good work ethic is disappearing with this. It's called work for a reason. It's not called going to enjoy.
And talking about the unrest that we've seen in the last 7 days or so, 8 days, Concerned Woman, as she calls herself, has got in touch. Elon's platform is the only place where free speech is supported. He's come out saying that civil war is on the horizon here in this country. She says it's the government's fault we're in this mess. Nobody has listened to genuine concerns around uncontrolled immigration. It's happening all over Europe. Same issue.
Rex says, I'm nearly 79. I've never been on a march. I don't condone violence, but I do understand the frustration of no one ever listening. The Tories were the same. The media is as guilty too. Immigration, the NHS, the shortage of police, crime, the dirty state of Britain. But most of all, I object to being called far right. I am not far right. I'm a rational person who hates where our country is and where it is being taken. Keep those views coming in, have your say. We'd love to hear from you.
And this is where this country's being taken. Police officers being injured. It was another night of sustained violence, this time in Plymouth. The disorder continuing for a 7th day after the Southport stabbings.
Violent riots have also taken place in Belfast. Protesters there threw petrol bombs as police cars got involved in all of that. Second night of disorder. Shops, barbers, cafes, all attacked.
Well, nearly 400 arrests have been made in the last week, with dozens of police officers injured and shops, cars and homes damaged across the UK.
Birmingham, last night there, tensions were high. You've seen video here from social media showing a crowd of Muslim men gathering to protect their local mosque.
Well, we're joined now by GB News political editor Christopher Hope with his take on how things are panning out. I mean, we've seen quite visibly a strengthening of the rhetoric from the Prime Minister, a show being made of those people who appeared in front of the courts yesterday. Didn't seem to have any effect, did it? There was still violence overnight.
No, and morning, Eamonn, and morning, Isabel. No question that the government's honeymoon is now well and truly over. Approval ratings are falling for the Prime Minister as they try and deal with this a nightmare for them, essentially. You've got 16 towns and cities, 8 days since those killings of those 3 small children in Southport by a knife attacker. And where do they go from here? They're trying to find a way to get across across it to be firm and to deal with the trouble and sound like they're dealing with it. They've got this standing army, they say, of hundreds of officers who can go to towns and cities where the next trouble might break out. The PM wants courts and prosecutors to name and therefore shame any rioters as soon as possible, so they're named and they're known about in their local communities. But still, trouble continues to break out. The information is spread on social media. They've got a battle now with Elon Musk, who runs X, formerly Twitter. We saw yesterday how he said it was civil war is inevitable, and the Prime Minister's official spokesman said there was no justification for that. And then Sir Keir Starmer on Twitter talked about the government won't tolerate attacks on mosques or on Muslim communities, to which Elon Musk replied, shouldn't you, Keir Starmer, be concerned about attacks on all communities? And that goes to the heart of the bigger debate, this two-tier policing issue. Two-tier Keir is trending and sometimes on Twitter. The idea is that the police is dealing with different outbreaks of violence in different ways. If it's a white group of individuals, they get a tougher time than if it's a group from an Asian heritage background. Then that really annoys people, and that's why we're seeing this battle break out on Twitter and X. And that's why you had a viewer or a listener just before there saying that X is the place they can express their feelings. The view is that these views are not expressed elsewhere. I think GBNews, to its credit, is trying to have this debate. Although I should say we haven't had a single Home Office minister on our channel since the election. So we have this debate about the issue of two-tier policing without any real impact directly from the government.
They did see the Home Secretary being interviewed by his wife on another channel yesterday, by her husband, in fact, which I thought was interesting impartiality. But anyway, so you're making that point then about two-tier policing, and, you know, lots of people disagree that that's... I mean, we talked about it with Richard Tice this morning. He absolutely thinks there is two-tier policing. But all of or at least three of the Conservative Party hopefuls to be leader dismissing it and disagreeing on that concept, not least former Home Secretaries themselves, Priti Patel and James Cleverly.
Yes, and they will. I mean, but both those two are former Home Secretaries. I should say that Suella Braverman, before she was fired as Home Secretary, did say there was different levels of policing, that police were picking favourites. But that was in relation to policing of pro-Palestinian marches when the war in Gaza broke out. So there are different views here from senior Conservatives. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a concern. I think to say it doesn't exist is more frustrating for those who say it does exist. I mean, maybe try and look into it further and say, well, is there a different policy? It might well be, Eamonn and Isabel, that you've got different police forces policing trouble in different ways depending on how the country is policed. We have 43 police forces in this country with their own approach on policing of violence. That may get more the same across the country with this idea of a standing army of police going into towns and cities. But currently we have different approaches from different forces, and that, when it's seen on social media, is causing concern. It's all very well for three senior Tories running for leader to dismiss it, but the concern is out there. Maybe the government should do more, and senior Tories, to address that concern.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just looking at a Police Service of Northern Ireland update about a little bit of the unrest that was taking place yesterday in Belfast in the afternoon. And they're updating us saying a man in his 30s is in a serious condition in hospital after being attacked on the Donegal Road and Oban Street in a suspected hate crime. And they also say that a 15-year-old male has been arrested on suspicion of riotous behaviour. I mean, the fact that there are hate crimes taking place, that there are young teenagers of school age getting in trouble with the police. I mean, you have to ask the question, how long until somebody dies in all of this? And as Freddie Gray was pointing out this morning, interesting that it has spread from Northern Ireland, Wales and England. It hasn't yet had any unrest or outbreak in Scotland, and I hope that remains the case. But so many elements to this, but that update from the Police Service of Northern Ireland as well.
Northern Ireland is a strange one because, you know, migration, immigration didn't affect us ever. Why? Because no one wanted to live there. There was no jobs. There was the Troubles were going on, and then obviously it was a good place to direct migrants to, and they integrate into society, and it becomes what I would have thought a pretty good thing. And the only thing people understand in Northern Ireland really is, are you Catholic, are you Protestant? Well, now you were Hindu, you were Muslim, you were something else that came in. But obviously a lot of people don't like difference. They just don't like difference at all, and they can't deal with that. They'll have their story to tell about this, and we'd like to hear it. We go to Yorkshire now, and a teenager says she's lucky to be alive because she was mauled by a big Rescue XL bully dog whilst working at an animal shelter.
Gilana Milner was the victim of a savage attack which left her in hospital, but despite the trauma she endured, she's spoken out against a ban on the breed.
Well, let's go to Anna Riley. She has the story, and just as a warning, graphic images in this report.
Animal lover Gilana Milner feared she was going to die after being mauled by an XL bully. She was left with serious injuries to her leg and chest and needed emergency surgery. The attack at a rescue centre where Gilana worked lasted for 5 terrifying minutes.
I thought he was just going to bite me and let go, like you see with everyone else at work when we've all got bitten at some point. But he never actually let go. So then it took a second to realise you're probably going to die. And then you can't really feel the pain of it. You can just feel like the sensation of him biting you. And I was watching him bite me, I couldn't do anything. All I could think about was my mum in the moment, the people that I loved. I've never really thought about dying like that before.
The assault has left the teenager with permanent nerve damage and emotional trauma.
I can wake up throughout the nights with a dream that a dog's just latched onto me or bitten me or anything like that, and I'd wake up hyperventilating. There's moments where I'm on the street and I see like a bully or something, and it plays in my mind again about what happened. And I went to go see this lady with a big fancy name, and she said that I have this thing where it's like a survival instinct. I'm always thinking about how I'm going to die in a situation. And she said that's located in the back of the brain and it's never going to go away.
It's against the law to sell, give away, abandon or breed from an XL bully, and illegal to own an XL bully without an exemption certificate. But despite what she went through, Gilana disagrees with the ban on the breed.
I think they should all be given a chance and shouldn't be put to sleep just because they're XLs. That's discrimination in a way. Some people think it's just in the brain, it's just like bred into them. There's like a big debate about it, which I suppose to some level could be true. But then again, I think the biggest impact is how they're brought up as a dog, the trauma that they've been through.
It's Gilana's dream to work with animals, and she refuses to let her ordeal stop her. Anna Riley, GB News, Wakefield.
Amazing. Just, anybody who rescues a dog, gives a dog a home, fantastic. But my goodness me, what are people doing, breeding and inbreeding these
Stick to that lovely
awful
white
animals?
cat there. That was lovely.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you were talking about the cat.
Well, she had a lovely cat there. I thought just
if
stick
the dog
to that.
had been there, it would have eaten the cat.
Exactly. But, we're going to be talking about our Great British Giveaway, and if I won £30,000, I'd just spend it all on cats. I'd just fill my house with cats and just cat toys and like a cat fountain.
£30,000 worth of cats.
Yeah, that's what I do.
That's a lot.
What would you do? Here's how you could have £30,000 to spend on whatever you want.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck, and I hope if you win, it makes you very, very happy.
Do you know who's very, very happy? Bev and Andrew, they're rearing to go. They're on at 9:30, but they're popping in to see us just before that. That's after this.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Prince Harry, he's back again. He's reignited the row over Meghan Markle's shattered relationship with Britain. In an ITV interview aired last night, he explained why he still feels it's too dangerous to bring his wife back to the UK.
It's still dangerous, and all it takes is one lone actor, one person who reads this stuff to act on what they have read, and whether it's a knife or acid, whatever it is, and these are things that are a genuine concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I won't bring my wife back to this country.
So will we ever see Meghan Markle back in Britain? I'm delighted to welcome the former royal correspondent at the Daily Express, Richard Palmer.
Well, I think there is certainly a history of far-right extremists targeting Harry and Meghan. You know, there have been a couple of quite prominent cases, I think. But I'm always a bit perplexed by this argument that Harry comes up with, because if you look at, say, homicide rates, comparing the US and the UK, the last figures I saw, you were about four times more likely to be murdered in the US than you are in the UK. And sure, we've got our problems over here, but you know, given that they've got such a high prevalence of people with guns over there, I would have thought the risks were higher over there than over here. And I think we have seen increasingly in the last couple of years that they have become polarising figures in the US as well as in the UK. Perhaps not quite to the same extent, but there does seem to be a bit of a political divide, that if you're a Democrat, you're perhaps more likely to be sympathetic towards Harry and Meghan. If you're a Republican, not so much.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
OK, Britain's newsroom. We've got that coming up just in about 13 minutes' time or so. Andrew and Bev, as per usual, on duty.
To go.
And it's a strange time, isn't it? These riots, the fact, the time of the year they're happening, and again, so predictable. And although these awful people, they're called thugs by everybody, there may be a point deep down, but no one's going to listen to their message carrying on like this, though.
I guess I would say, which side do you mean? Because the assumption being that this is all being driven by what Keir Starmer's called the far right, a stupid, reductive phrase. We've heard of a 14-year-old who's been... That 14-year-old is not a far-right political activist.
He wouldn't know what far-right meant.
There's so much boredom, there's so much idleness, there's so much kind of lack of respect for the law, that it's just kind of a chaotic decay of social fabric.
See, I don't understand about this country. There's a kid who hasn't got a stake in society, right? Yeah. Won't have a job, probably comes out his ambitions will be very limited and whatever it is. So what the heck are we saying that we need all these people in these areas? Why can we not train our own people to work in certain sectors?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, that's exactly the point. And look, the massive increase in migration in these areas, Eamonn, is a huge factor here. It's been uncontrolled. It's changing communities. beyond comprehension, and people are struggling with it.
And I think events of the last 24 hours...
And they're taking jobs.
And we're going to look at some of the cases that... And the events of the last 24 hours has very much, hopefully, made some politicians wake up and realise, there are two sides to this story. There are two groups of perpetrators. Jess Phillips on Twitter yesterday, I don't know whether you've covered it this morning, who was excusing an enormous group of Muslim men outside the McDonald's in Birmingham. And she said they've only gone there because they've been provoked online by the far right today. Now, that is such a patronising phrase, to those men.
Well,
they are the architects.
This list was published, wasn't it? And the Law Society were very upset about it as well, where a whole list of these far right, as they're being described, agitators, had listed places where people should meet and go.
That's right.
And so, and these people came out to defend them.
Because you know what you can do? You can ignore it. You can ignore it. You know, my mother used to say, if somebody told you to jump off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff?
No.
Well, if someone tells you on Twitter, we're going to go down to the McDonald's in Birmingham, you don't have to arrive with 500 of your mates with machetes. It's entirely... They are the architects of that behaviour.
But you know what doesn't help? When you get the most senior police officer in the country striking a microphone out of a journalist's hand when he asks a question about two-tier policing. Look, that's what Keir Starmer is becoming known as, two-tier Keir. That's the Metropolitan Police Commissioner.
Yeah. He said he was in a rush. He denied it was...
Appalling.
He denied it was being touched.
Appalling.
I'd love to know what wound him up.
We've seen a TV journalist and radio journalist forced to close down, and a radio journalist in particular pursued by 6 Muslim boys.
We've got an interesting story on the show this morning. Of course, a lot of the backstory to all of this, it's easy to forget how we've got to this place of division and conflict. The Manchester Airport incident with the police officers and the perpetrators of that violence. They're giving a press conference this morning. The kids.
With their mother.
So the 19-year-old, Far Amaz and Mohammed Ahmad, 25, and their mum are going to be talking this morning with their solicitor. Now, they haven't
the solicitor who resigned?
No, they've got a new one.
Right. Yeah.
Now, this, as far as we know...
I've never heard of this before. They will be charged at some point, because everybody's seen the violence. Punching police officers in the face, breaking the policewoman's nose. Giving a press conference? I've never heard of anything like it. So we're going to be taking that, and it will be fascinating, because...
to say what?
Yeah.
Defend themselves?
Yeah.
Are they going to say, we have been harshly treated here? I don't think they have a leg to stand on in that regard. When you saw the footage from start to finish, you bang them up. But, you know... this is just extraordinary. So we are going to take some of that live this morning, so make sure you stay with us.
And another story too, thousands of young people who can't get their treatment for gender dysphoria. I'm rather pleased. I'm glad there's a waiting list, because I think too many young children have been getting treatment.
But what is the treatment? Is it mental health treatment, or is it chemical? Because if it is,
therapy.
I mean, it is tied in with mental health.
But some of these kids are 8 years old, Isabel.
There's about 5,000 of them, I think.
Nearly 6. They're too young.
Well, they're not too young, I guess, for therapeutic support. If their behaviour is out of control for whatever reason and they have learning needs and whatever, that's a very different... There is a huge waiting list for kids with mental issues on the NHS. But we're going to dig into that a little bit. And also, an interesting story about vapes, which have been laced with spice, a really powerful drug, and that children are accidentally smoking these. We're going to be talking to Professor Mike Barnes about that.
So how are they accidentally smoking this?
I don't know. That's what we're going to find out. These vapes are in circulation at the moment. Children are managing to get hold of them.
So they can be in somebody's house and they could just use them?
Yeah. Or, I mean, it could be more pernicious than that. It could be people genuinely trying to get kids addicted.
It's rampant in our prisons.
What is it?
It's rampant in our prisons.
It's a horrible hallucinogenic, but it has a kind of a sort of catatonic effect on the user, so that they go sort of semi-unconscious and slumps. So it's a really serious drug, and if that is routinely, or not routinely, but if that is getting into vapes which teenagers are smoking, then that's a big story. And also XL bullies.
Well, yeah, we covered the story there.
Someone who survived an attack, defending them.
I know.
I don't know what's wrong with her. And there she was pictured at the end of the video with a lovely cat.
Yeah.
Stick to the fluffy white cat.
We like cats, Isabel.
We do,
we know
Andrew.
the point of cats. Very nice, very therapeutic.
Well, we'll look forward to the show, guys. I'm sure it'll be another cracker as well as that press conference. That's at 9:30. Andrew and Bev, thanks very much indeed. Thanks for all of your comments this morning. We've enjoyed your company. We've had lots of thoughts about funerals, haven't we, and whether or not people should be chuckling and putting the fun back into funerals. Not for us, though. We want tears,
I don't think
wailing.
you can ever be, but you could never be happy at a child's funeral.
Or anyone young. I mean, I lost my friend last year, and she had a 2-year-old son. It was tragic, tragic. But I do want people to have a good time at the wake.
Yes.
So there we go. We're ending on a high, aren't we?
We're ending on a high. Whatever you're doing, have a good day. Maybe you're going to a funeral. Who knows? But anyway, we're back from 6 tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most of us will have a fine day today, but across the northwest there's going to be lots of showers around, and it's a pretty grey start over parts of eastern England. Some mostly light rain and drizzle here, which will continue to edge eastwards across East Anglia over the next few hours before kind of fizzling out. Sunny spells for much of Wales, northern England and southwest England and eastern Scotland. For western Scotland, Northern Ireland, there will be sunny spells, but expect showers to come and go as well, some pretty heavy ones. A few of them for northwest England, but in the sunny spells here, 20 degrees, could get to 24, 25 across the southeast when the sun comes out later this afternoon. But a fresher feel in the northwest with fairly brisk winds, and look at this, lots of showers just streaming in as we go through the day, with the winds coming from the southwest, far northeast of Scotland, seeing some shelter. So here, not many showers and some good spells of sunshine, but plenty of showers throughout today across Northern Ireland. We'll see some getting into northwest England and at times into Wales, but a good part of England and Wales will be dry for most of the day, and that rain fizzling out certainly by this evening across East Anglia. So a fine end to the day here. For many, it'll be a dry and a fine night across central and eastern parts, but further west, always the likelihood of more showers. And look at this, more wet and windy weather coming into western Scotland as we go through the early hours. It's going to be a soggy start to proceedings here tomorrow. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens, certainly in towns and cities across England and Wales. A little cooler in rural spots, so close to average really for the time of year. Sunny start then for the Midlands and eastern England during Wednesday, and for much of the east it'll stay fine throughout the day, but it